Aita for refusing to help my dad's ex-wife with rent after his passing, even though she is struggling, and my half-brother is still a minor. So here's the situation. My dad passed away 3.5 years ago when my half-brother was 11 years old. My dad and his ex-wife had been separated for about 5 years before his death, but they weren't legally divorced. During that time, they didn't really have much contact, and she didn't join any family gatherings or events. Even during the funeral, she wasn't there where my aunt, my grandma, and I, 32F, were, and I didn't have a close relationship with her. My dad was also struggling financially and he didn't left anything behind apart from a small boat he had purchased in my name, which I sold and put the money aside for my brother's future and started paying towards his needs such as education fees and monthly allowances for him. My dad had still been supporting my half-brother's mom financially, even though they weren't living together, and I only had to communicate with her a few times after his passing about my brother's expenses. Here's where things get tricky. My aunt has been paying the rent for my dad's ex-wife and my half-brother for the past 3.5 years, as my dad's ex-wife claims to be struggling financially. She works full-time but also receives a pension through my dad. Now, the landlord wants them to move out, and my aunt, who has been helping with rent all this time, is not in a position to pay for the rent in the future apartment. My dad's ex-wife is now asking me for help with rent, claiming she's still struggling. I'm honestly conflicted. I don't have a strong relationship with her, and I don't feel it's my responsibility to help her out with rent, especially when I'm already helping my brother. I've made it clear that I can't help with the rent, but she's persistent and threatening me to tell my brother that I'm this bad sister who is not helping him out with their housing situation, and she told me if I'm not helping her out with rent, I shouldn't act like a good sister and help out on anything else as well. I feel like it's not fair that I should take on this burden when I'm already looking out for my brother's well-being, and especially when my aunt has already been helping her all this time. My primary focus is on my brother's future, and I just don't want to take on any more responsibilities that aren't my own. I also want to mention that while my dad financially supported my dad's ex-wife when they were separated, their relationship was strained, and I never felt close to her. I'm struggling with whether I'm being unreasonable for not helping her, even though she's in a tough situation. So, Aita for not wanting to help her out with rent, even though she's claiming that she is struggling. Update. Thank you, everyone, for supporting my decision. I'm overwhelmed by the support I've received. I just want to provide a bit more context about the countries involved without going into too much detail. I'm originally from a Middle Eastern country and moved to Europe a couple of years ago to work under better conditions. My brother and his mom still live in my home country. Things have been tough there, just like everywhere else, and she is not the only one struggling. In our culture, families help each other out. However, even though my family loves my brother and has done everything to support him, we feel like she is using us at this point, and I don't want to give in to her manipulation. My mom was a single parent who worked 2 jobs to provide me with housing and all my needs until I was able to provide for myself, so her attitude is really frustrating me even more. As some of you suggested, I don't want to help her with budget planning or finding a new apartment because I'm afraid that if I help her even a little, she'll keep asking for more. I also think she wants to maintain an expensive lifestyle. She isn't into drugs or gambling, as far as I know, but she does spend a lot on luxury cosmetics, branded clothes, and even some Botox and similar treatments. Regarding taking my brother to live with me, it would be very complicated due to visa processes, but if things get worse, I will do everything in my power to arrange that. I told her that life is tough for everyone, I'm in no position to pay rent, and I'm not going to send her any money from my brother's account for her rent because he will need it more in the future. It is her responsibility to find somewhere to live within her budget. I also told her I don't want her to contact me ever again about anything related to this topic, as I don't believe it is my responsibility to help her. She was shameless enough to say that she didn't want the full rent, just my share that I had to support for my brother's sake. I will send my brother a text message in a couple of days, letting him know that I love him, I'm always there for him, and he can reach out to me personally whenever he wants. I'm also considering giving him a debit card. She has until the end of this month to leave the current apartment, and I'm waiting to see how things will unfold. Editor's note: OOP made same posts on a different sub, but adding one comment for more context. Relevant comments. Commenter 1, NTA, she is a manipulative person and really unkind, threatening you with ill words and access to your stepbrother. The bigger question is, why does she not have enough money? She receives your dad's pension and she will qualify for money for your brother through Social Security, if in USA, unless your dad is not on the birth certificate. What did this woman save in the past 3.5 years when her rent was being paid? If you help her, never give her money directly. Before you pay a cent, she needs to sign up for all and any social support services, e.g. subsidized housing, utility assistance, food stamps, nutritional assistance, free Wi-Fi, free health care. If she tells you she was denied, she needs to provide the rejection correspondence. If she is receiving help, she can work with a social worker budgeting and show you a full account of incoming cash versus bills. She will threaten you through your stepbrother no matter what you do, even if you help. If you do pay a bill, she provides her account hashtag and company name so you pay it directly. This may not be advice you wanted, but there is a lot to manage her ask. In the meantime, negotiate how you can spend time with your brother. Convey to him and ensure he has your contact info, in the event she cuts you off. Best to you. If you pay a utility bill, ensure there is no local law that states once you pay, you are not responsible for this debt. In the US there are a few states that have this stipulation. Reply, thanks a lot for the advice. Unfortunately they are not based in the US and all she is entitled to is my dad's pension, which is not that much. According to what she told me, her income is around 3 minimum wages in the country she is living in, and according to my research she should be able to afford a decent apartment in a nearby neighborhood to my brother's school. Should cost her around 1 minute wage and she should be able to afford her living expenses with the remaining. However, she is claiming that to get a decent apartment, she needs to pay half of her income and she can't afford her living expenses with the rest, and she wants me to pay the difference on what she can afford and what is decent for her. I have lived in a different country for a while now and am able to see my brother maybe once a year. I care about him deeply and it concerns me that she would turn him against me. However, I don't want to help an adult with their rent, which is the most basic thing that they should take care about. Was there a will that OOP's father might have left? Reply, no, my father didn't leave anything behind. Only debt, and in my country you can refuse, which we all did, and not obligated with paying it. Is OOP sure her brother is her biological sibling? Reply, yes, they had him back in the days when they were good and he looks just like my dad's childhood pictures. Commenter 2. If your aunt has been paying her rent for 3.5 years, why does the landlord want her to move? This makes no sense. As long as a tenant is consistent every month, that is like a dream tenant. I would ask your aunt if she was paying the rent to the ex or to the landlord directly. Something doesn't add up here. Free rent, full-time paycheck, and a pension. How is she not surviving? Reply, my aunt was paying it to the landlord directly since she helped my dad sign the lease of the apartment back in the day. He then moved out after their split but was continuing to pay the rent, and my aunt took over when he died. I don't want to go into detail of why they have to move out since there was some legal stuff going on. Update. Big thanks to everyone encouraging me to not give any money to my dad's ex-wife. I followed your advice and very happy with my decision. So here's why. Over the weekend, I realized I was blocked on socials by the ex-wife, and also my brother removed me as well. I reached out to my brother directly because I wanted to make sure he knew that none of this was his fault and that I will always be there for him. I didn't want to say anything that could damage his relationship with his mom, but I needed him to know that I did nothing against him and that he can always reach out to me. To my relief, he responded right away and reassured me that he has no hard feelings toward me at all. He already knew that a lot of what his mom told him wasn't true and even said he was actually happy about the decision I made. He told me that if he were in my position, he would have done the same thing. One of the most upsetting parts of our conversation was when he admitted that he never liked asking me for money through his mom because it made him feel like a beggar, but she insisted on it. He also told me that she had been looking for an apartment way beyond her budget and had been trying to collect money from different people to afford it, which confirmed my suspicions. I also learned that now they found an apartment within whatever budget she has. What really broke my heart was when he said he needed to delete our messages because his mom sometimes checks his phone, and if she found out we talked, she would be very upset with him. It made me realize just how much control she has over him. I reassured him that the money I was sending for him is still his, kept safely with me, and that when he needs anything, I will find a way to help him, but it won't be through his mom anymore. He understood and seemed relieved. He also told me that he's already thinking about his future carefully and wants to choose a profession where he can be financially independent, so he never has to worry about money. Honestly, I was happily surprised by how mature and self-aware he is for a 15-year-old. Despite everything, he's handling the situation with so much understanding and perspective, and it makes me even prouder to be his sister. For now, I will keep in touch with him privately to make sure he knows he is not alone. I told him that when he grows up, I'll be there to support him, especially for things like university. He knows that no matter what happens, I will always have his back. Editor's note, again, OOP made the same update onto a different sub, but I am adding some comments for more context. Relevant comments. Commenter, thanks for the update. He sounds like a good kid, you made the right choice. Reply, thank you, it was such a relief to talk to him. Commenter 2, this update just confirms that you made the right call. Your brother is smart and sees through his mom's manipulation, which says a lot. Keeping direct support for him instead of funneling money through her is the best move. She's clearly been using guilt and control to get what she wants, and now that the money train stopped, she's cutting you off. Good riddance. Keep being there for your brother. He's lucky to have you. Reply, thank you for the support. If anything, this situation made our relationship stronger with my brother, and now I know the money will only go to his needs and not to his mom. Commenter 3, I noticed in your first update on your original post that you were thinking about giving him a debit card. I would not do that given how his mother likely goes through his things and would use it for her own purposes. Keep supporting him. You are being a great big sister. Reply, oh yes, I'm definitely not doing this. Apparently she has the means to support my brother and he never wanted my money since he started high school. She was making him ask for his monthly allowance from me every month. Honestly, I didn't mind paying that, but now that she doesn't want it, I will save it for his future when he will need it more. Stories number 2. I feel violated and confused by what my fiancé did to me. Whipped if I told my parents, I, F20, am engaged to my fiancé, M26, and we've been together for 2 years. He's never ever done something like this before, so I guess this is why I'm so scared. I just don't know. He's usually so kind. I feel violated, if I'm allowed to say that. It was 2 nights ago, and I haven't left my bed since. Basically, we were in his bed in his home and we were going to sleep. For info, my fiancé and I have never slept together before, and we don't do anything like that because I am supposed to be saving myself for marriage. He knows this and supports it, and likes that for me. Which is also why I feel so confused. He basically started touching me places and I kind of was like, what are you doing? And he said nothing, just touching. I made a joke about how I don't think it's allowed, and he snapped that he doesn't fucking care what's allowed or what's not. I was quiet and kind of let him do it, but I felt weird. After a while he was kissing me and basically asked me to do something for him, in that way. I told him no and tried to laugh it off. It was awkward and I felt low-key uncomfortable. He just held me there and told me to do it for him again. I said no again and got up to go to the bathroom because I was shaking. He followed me and said that I couldn't leave the bathroom unless I got down and did it for him. I kept saying no and I honestly thought he was joking for a minute, but he was serious. He closed the door and blocked it. He said he would wait all night. I said me too, and we just stood there for a while. Eventually, I sat down on the edge of the bathtub, trying to prove how I would seriously wait. He grabbed my shoulder and literally pulled me really hard onto the ground. I hit my knees hard on the tile, but he did not ask if I was okay. I had to do what he wanted, and the entire time I was just so sad and scared and embarrassed and uncomfortable, and it was an uncomfortable and awkward and painful experience all around. He was much nicer the rest of the night and apologized for hurting my knees. He told me not to cry and not to tell anyone because he still wants me to wait until married and they might think we didn't. He said stuff like that stays between couples, which I understand. I went home the next morning and my mom asked me if I was okay. I said yes. I haven't told anyone because I am ashamed. I feel low-key violated, but I also know I wasn't supposed to do anything like that, so I don't want to tell anyone I did. I'm just confused, I think. Would I be awful to tell my mom what he did? Stories number 3. Aita for punching my stepdaughter after she played a prank on me that scared me. I, 38M, married Judd, 44F, a few years ago, and I acquired a stepdaughter, Abby, 14F, as a result. I dated Judd when Abby was 8, met her when she was 9, and married Judd when she was 10. I'd say our relationship is okay. She doesn't act bratty towards me and respects me enough as her mom's husband. However, there is one glaring issue about her, and that is her pranking nature. Abby loves to pull pranks. Some examples are her hiding my car keys with what looked like 100 dubs in a box. I found them quickly because she failed to notice my keys have duct tape on them. Another one is when she hid in the fridge, something I still find very weird, to scare the first person who opened it. Well, last Wednesday, I arrived home and it seemed that I was the only one there. Only my shoes were at the doorstep, and I even called out Judd's and Abby's names with no answer. This is somewhat normal as Judd sometimes works late and Abby stays at school for extracurricular. So I screwed around with my dog, a German Shepherd and Husky mix for anyone that will ask, for a bit, and then I decided to relive myself. When I got to the bathroom I noticed that the window cabinet was open. I thought nothing of it at first and unzipped my pants, but then I saw a shadow behind the shower curtains. I thought the worst and immediately punched the figure behind the curtains. Well, as everyone may have guessed it from the title, it was Abby. She was making a prank video and I had not noticed that she propped her phone up on the bathroom cabinet with 2 cups. I'm not gonna lie, I did not hold back. I punched her as hard as I could. Her nose looked broken, and when I realized it, I flipped out, and so did she. After maybe 5 minutes of freaking out, I drove her to urgent care and informed Judd of the situation. Her nose was indeed broken and would need about 6 to 12 weeks of recovery. Abby won't talk to me, and as for Judd, she thinks that my action may have been justified but also thinks I should have approached with more caution, which she has refused to elaborate on. So Aita, update. Well, this blew up big time. Let's address a few things. Abby's pranking nature isn't just situated on me, she has pulled pranks on her friends, the neighbors, and at school. The school has called Judd several times about this as they have resulted in mild vandalism. The refrigerator prank, she was 11 when that happened, not a grown teenager. It was a brand new and very large fridge that my uncle bought and showed it off to everyone. So she climbed in until he opened it again. Judd yelled at her saying that she could have suffocated in there and took her outside to scold her for a few hours. The video doesn't show the toilet at all, just the shower curtain. However, the issue still remains that this was a massive invasion of privacy. The video has been deleted and Abby has admitted it was purely her fault. The update. It's been a chaotic week. Judd still refused to elaborate on how the situation should have been handled. I showed the post as a result and she did a 180 turn. She suddenly thought it may be time to stage an intervention and I agreed. We brought some of her friends as well as my cousin's wife, Jess. Jess is an officer from another state and Abby seems to respect her. In this intervention we state how we were each affected by her various pranks and how in turn they affected her. Jess also spoke about how much of these pranks border on criminal territory, meaning she could be arrested or face retaliation. It seemed to have gotten to her and Abby cried a bit and promised to do better. When everybody else left, Jess stayed behind and brought to our attention about a disciplinary camp that we could send her to. The program is 6 weeks long and involves group therapy, individual therapy, and constructive projects, whatever that means, and is held at a university campus. The program apparently has good reviews. Judd seems dead set in sending her to figure out her core problems. I'm a little hesitant about sending a kid away from home, but I'm the step-parent so I got no say. Update. Okay, I swear Judd must be following my posts because now she's taking back what she said and is now thinking about doing what I and you fellow Redditors suggested in the first place, weekly therapy. So we agreed that I'm gonna find a therapist and I'm gonna front the bill for it since she didn't take this seriously in the first place. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Sent away seems extreme. Have you looked into this program? Is it held at a religious college? She might just end up abused at some of these type of teen rehabilitation camps and also just exposed to kids that are worse. I realize it might not be your call, but I would suggest try local therapy first way before sending a kid off. Reply. And I agree, sending a kid away from home will probably just damage them more. But Judd seems intent on dishing out the harshest punishment immediately, thinking that this will nip it at the bud. Or she doesn't want to be seen as an enabler. She changed opinions real fast when I showed her the original post. OOP on why he chose physical violence. Well, I thought she was a junkie who invaded my home, but okay. I'll be more cautious next time. Enlighten me, what steps should I take next time? Commenter 2. Wait, why do you have to pay for her kid's therapy when she didn't take her behavior seriously? That doesn't make any sense. Reply. Because she doesn't know how to find therapists. She just wants to send Abby away. Commenter 3. Hasn't she ever heard of Google? Sounds like Weapon Z incompetence. Reply. The program is free. Jess said that she could enroll Abby in for free. That most definitely played a part in Judd wanting to send her there. New update. Final update. Well, it's been 7-ish months and there have been a few developments. Let's address some more things before getting there. Up until recently, I have been still getting DMs asking why is this brat still in my house, why am I friends with Jess, and why did I name my wife Judd in my posts. I was drinking when I made my first post. I saved a draft and went back to it after a few hours of sobering up, fixing a bunch of grammatical mistakes but clearing some got overlooked and it just stuck. I was planning on calling her Judy. Jess and I are not friends. She married to my cousin who I do have a good relationship with, as well as their 2 daughters and Jess's daughter. Jess has a serious problem with boundaries. As for why Abby was still living with me, you have to understand, I, her stepfather, broke Abby's, my stepdaughter's, nose. If word got out it would look really bad, would be seen as an abuser and may have even been arrested. Several comments have pointed this out, how I should have saved that video for my own safety. I was pretty much going insane at that point and my wife thought nothing of it, thinking I should have just let this go until I showed her my original post. To be honest, I wanted to keep the intervention that we had smaller, that didn't involve her friends, because I felt they did not need to know about it. I just wanted her grandparents and Jess to show up, but I was convinced otherwise. Updates. We decided that we would send Abby to weekly therapy. We were under the agreement that I would find and pay for it, and if it worked my wife would pay me back. It did work. Abby improved by a lot. She has realized how much damage she has done and working to improve things. She has even begun to do volunteer work as well, which I didn't think she would do. She has apologized profusely, realizing how disgusting her prank was. She has also deleted her TikTok account, commenting that's where she got all the ideas from. We decided we would get her a new smartphone for her birthday 3 months ago for the improvement she's shown. We took away all smart devices as punishment. I don't think I mentioned that before. As for me and my wife, I gave her an ultimatum. Since therapy worked for Abby, it would be time we go to couples therapy or else we separate. We were having problems before this whole incident showed up, and now it kinda has to be forced. Past 2 years we've been living more like roommates, and her enabling behavior is finally causing things to fall apart. She reluctantly agreed. It ended up being short-lived. She spoke during our sessions how I take things out of proportion and I went too far posting the incident online. She revealed that she was indeed following my posts, and that's why she changed her mind about the camp. Our therapist then asked us both if we loved each other at all. I was honest and said yes, but it's becoming difficult. My wife on the other hand said she was in love with the idea of me. I needed a minute if I heard that right, and she went on how I was apparently a catch. I was younger than her, had a stable job and owned a house, and she thought my loyalty was a bonus. I don't why, but I asked her if she cheated on me and she said no. But it doesn't matter, she just revealed that she settled for me. I filed for divorce 2 months ago. We had a prenup, so things are going smoothly other than her erroneously claiming some jewelry is hers, but my lawyer seems to think that it should finalized within 1 to 2 months. So my STBEX has moved out along with Abby. My dog misses them, she just sits by the door waiting for hours for them to come back. Specs is not happy about how things have progressed. She has been calling me a spineless bastard who couldn't just tolerate how things are, and has been saying to everyone who will listen. But behind closed doors she's been blaming Abby for her divorce, claiming it was her behavior that caused it. I know this because she has called me and texted me semi-regularly. Abby is living with her grandparents because apparently her mother can't deal with her right now. I actually liked my in-laws. They were real good people and they've apologized for their daughter's actions and even offered to reimburse me for Abby therapy sessions. They told me that they were gonna take care of Abby because it seems her mother has finally lost it. I spoke with Abby and assured her that this wasn't her fault. Chances are we were gonna divorce regardless. She then told me that she didn't want me to leave and that I was the closest thing to father she ever had. This surprised me. I never really saw myself as a parental figure for Abby. I only really did the minimal. Outside of that I just paid for school events, supplies, and would carve out some time for her, but I did leave it up to her if she wanted to spend time with me. I told her that maybe when she turns 18 we can pick up where we left off, but until then I don't think we can see each other. Her mother would definitely try to keep her away from me, and to be honest I need some time away from Abby as well. Things are so quiet at home that it's relaxing. So there you go, I don't even care if my STBX finds this post. TLDR, sent Abby to therapy, it worked, but now me and her mother are divorcing and things are just falling apart. Stories number 4. Aita for telling my fiancé that her sister can't stay with us going forward. My fiancé's mother and sister, 30, are devout Hindus, while I'm Christian. Their family is dysfunctional, the parents are separated but live in the same house. The sister resents their father, constantly fights with him, and refuses to move out despite owning a house he bought her. She stays home to avoid spending money, saving 95% of her income, while their mother enables her. The real trouble started when my fiancé, her mother, and sister visited the temple twice. The first time, a temple person told them I would end up with another woman, they believed it blindly. The second time, this same person claimed I was gay. Afterward, they called my mother, saying they wanted to sell everything and get their money back. Following this, I asked my fiancé to limit their visits to our place. They were coming over 3 to 4 times a week, which was excessive. I value my privacy and want time alone with my fiancé. Then came my birthday party. My fiancé's mother invited their father, hoping to mend things. During dinner, he made a joke, and the sister lost it. She stormed out, went home, and destroyed his garden. He threatened to call the cops, and I don't blame him. She has serious anger issues. The next week, their mother left for an overseas trip, leaving the sister home alone. She initially asked if she could work from our place, which I suspected was an excuse to stay over. Sure enough, when the time came, she guilt-tripped my fiancé into letting her stay a full week. At that point, I put my foot down. I told my fiancé that her sister couldn't stay. After what she pulled with the temple visits and her general behavior, I didn't want her in my home. I also like my space. I walk around in my boxers, unwind, and don't want to feel uncomfortable in my own house. My parents also agreed that she shouldn't stay with us when she has her own home. A few weeks later, my fiancé finally told her sister she couldn't stay over anymore. She completely lost it, texting my mom to keep her big nose out of our business and telling me to keep the hell away from my dog. They have a Jack Russell I love. Now, she's acting like a child and refuses to attend our wedding, despite being the maid of honor. She keeps messaging my fiancé, though I don't know what she's saying. My fiancé now wants me to apologize, but I don't feel I did anything wrong. Am I the asshole? What should I do? Stories number 5. Aita for defending and praising my daughter when she broke a bully's nose trying to defend a kid. In the title I said, my daughter, cause this little angel of 7 years isn't mine biological but she is the daughter of my best friend who died of cancer and he asked me to take care of her like she was mine. It's a very long, boring and too emotional story to be explained her. Sophie is my whole world. She is sweet, kind, always have unlimited energy, sometimes too much ha ha ha, and most of all she always defends the other ones. She is the exact copy of my best friend and sometimes when she sleeps I watch her and I cry cause I think at her father and it's just like a piece of me died and she is remembering it. Anyway my parents were, and still are, strongly against my choice and my promise cause I'm too young and too unexperienced to deal with an enormous thing like this and well they always find something that isn't right. The way I dress her, the values I try to teach her, the way she plays so basically nothing is good for them but don't worry it's the habit and I learned to deal with it ha ha ha. But yesterday what I said in the title happened. She was playing in the garden of the school with her beastie, Mary, when she heard a kid yelling, "Stop, you're hurting me, leave me alone," and when she got near she saw a kid bullying a guy and kicking him on the body. Here comes the thing that I teached her. If you warn someone for 3 times to stop it and she doesn't listen you can teach him her the meaning of the word, stop. And this is what happened. She told the kid 3 times to stop and at the 3rd warning the kid pushed her down and tried to kick her too but she reacted by throwing a punch and breaking the little kid's nose. Now, before anyone says it, I know by myself that violence isn't an option and we all shouldn't react in that way but sometimes it's necessary to make the bully learn the lesson. When I got the call from the school and they said they wanted to talk with me immediately I got worried and started to think at the worst but when I arrived and they told me what happened I was confused cause, like I told them, since when punishing someone that stands up and try to help the bullied one is to condemn and punish, I told them the same thing that violence isn't the option and I told them that I will have a talk with Sophie about what happened and teach her that what she did wasn't right. But you know what? I'm proud of her. I'm proud that she stands up and helped the others. Obviously I told her that violence isn't a solution and all this stuff but I'm proud of my daughter. As you can imagine for my parents was the end of the fucking world. Their words, WTF are you teaching her? Do you want her to be a criminal? Is this what we thought you, and this kind of BS? I tried to explain them my point but obviously they didn't even let me explain and now to them I'm like a criminal that teaches a little girl how to kill. So Aita, edit. Wow, I would never bet a cent on the fact that there were many people on my side cause I know the internet and I know that we are all a bit saints when this things happens but it's nice to see that many people are honest. So thank you all for your support and for your advices on the relationship with my parents. Top comments. Did the school explain what the punishment the bully was getting? Oh OP. I didn't mention it because it wasn't the point but after a long hour of talk and me menacing to sue them the bully was suspended cause it wasn't the first time this accident happened, and sincerely I don't get why no one ever thought that the kid was a problem, and Sophie got 3 days of after school detention. Commenter 1. Let me be the first to shout, NTA, and of course to remind you to teach her more nuanced awareness of law enforcement as she gets older. Commenter 2. NTA and good job. You are doing a great job parenting her. Tell the school that they need to do better about bullying behaviors from kids and don't back down. Your parents need to calm down and quit being foolish. You should be proud of yourself. I'm proud of you, keep moving forward. Update. I want again to thank you and tell you how much I appreciate your support and ideas from the last post cause I wasn't expecting it. Some of you made me think and I did what I usually do when I have thoughts. I went to my grandparents for some real support and confrontation. I always do this and they know it so they are always ready for me ha ha ha. So this morning I advised them that I would be there to have a talk with them and they were super happy mostly, or entirely ha ha ha, because I was bringing Sophie too and they absolutely love and adore her ha ha ha. Sophie was very happy and excited too for visiting them ha ha ha. Once there obviously they hugged and kissed her like I wasn't existing for those 10 minutes and then my grandpa went to play with her and I remained alone to have a talk with my grandma. I told her what happened and all the mess and she without hesitation asked me if I did something alone with Sophie and what I told her. I told her that I brought my little angel for an ice cream because no matter what the school said I was proud of her standing up and defending the bullied kid and we spent the whole day together doing fun stuff. She said that she was proud too of Sophie and gave me a new perspective on what happened that I would never thought about. Then we obviously remained for lunch and my grandma like always made a wedding lunch, like me and Sophie weren't eating since 40 years ha ha ha. We remained there a few more hours and we all played together until a few minutes ago I brought Sophie to a friend's house for a party. I still don't know whose is the party and why there is a party, but okay, hahaha. But the thing that my grandma told me and I'm still thinking about is my parents' immediate angry and aggressive reaction to what happened, like I was teaching Sophie the worst things on this planet. So I thought about it a lot and finally understood what my grandma was trying to say. Is all about my relationship with my parents and how much I care for their opinion. I admit that I love to hear people's opinion, but the mistake that I'm making is to give too much value to what my parents think and not that much on what I think is right or not. I know that they're my parents and of course what they say is important, but like my grandma said, honey, you're not 14 anymore, you're almost 30 and you have a daughter with you. It's time you make your own life, your own choices, your own mistakes. Your parents will forever tell you what they want and not what you want to hear. So stop bothering yourself about what they think and start to think with your own mind about your life and not theirs. For how much is difficult to admit, but she is right, like always I would say ha ha ha, and it's true that I rely a lot on them, but it's because they are my parents and their words have an importance, so I don't know, maybe it's because I'm afraid to be a failure in their eyes, but grandma is absolutely right. I need to make my own life and my own decisions and I have every intention to do it. So nothing, just this. Just a simple talk with my grandma made me realize a lot of things, like always, and to me it was fair to let you know too. Top comments. Commenter 1, family dynamics and advice from grandparents, this post has it all. Glad to hear everything worked out and your daughter is a badass defender. Here's hoping she uses her skills for good and not evil. Commenter 2, Granny is wise. Great idea to go and see her. Perspective is always good. So, carry on with your daughter, you're doing a great job. Commenter 3, it's not like you are teaching her to go around punching everyone or picking fights. She came to the defense of someone in need. Get Wonder Woman a cape. She was that kid's hero. She will be able to take care of herself and others in a world devaluing everyone, especially women. Keep it up and maybe get her into martial arts to refine those skills. Stories number 6. I checked his phone and now I feel sick. My boyfriend came home late the other night and I was super suspicious. I couldn't help but check his phone. I knew something was off, so I waited until he was asleep and went through his messages. He said he was just going out for just a drink with his friend. It wasn't just a drink. He went to a strip club. But that's not even the worst part. I found texts between him and his friend, talking about how good the night was. He straight up admitted to getting a private lap dance. He even described the dancer, saying she was so hot and that she literally changed his type to blondes. I just sat there staring at the screen, reading those words over and over again. Because I'm a brunette. When I woke him up and confronted him, he barely looked guilty. He just sighed and said, "It's not a big deal, it was just for fun." Like my feelings meant nothing. I broke up with him on the spot. Stories number 7. My best friend's GF ruined my food. I don't know how to tell my best friend that I'm pissed with his GF. I, 35M, am a foodie. I've been cooking since I was 10 and I even have a personal cookbook of the recipes I've accumulated over the years. I know my recipes to heart so much so that I often don't need a recipe to cook my dishes. My closest friends and I decided to have dinner and board game night last week, to which my best friend Clark, 34M, volunteered to host. He requested me to cook my spicy Italian sausage pasta and said that I could cook my pasta dish at his house. He even joked that he gets to keep any of the leftovers, which was fine by me. I agreed to this arrangement because his kitchen was equipped for me to cook my dish, and I didn't need to worry about transporting my dish. I arrived at Clark's house a few hours early with my ingredients in tow along with board games from my collection. Yes, I'm a board gamer too. Clark's girlfriend of 4 months, Sasha, 32F, let me in the house. I asked her where Clark was, and she said he was out doing errands and buying snacks and refreshments for later. I proceeded to the kitchen to prepare the ingredients and start cooking. My cooking of the sauce went well. The flavors were balanced to my liking. It had saltiness from the pancetta and the Parmesan rind, sweetness and tartness from the onions and canned and fresh tomatoes, heat from Calabrian chiles, and herbaceous notes from a blend of fresh and dried herbs. After finishing the sauce, I took it off the heat and prepared a pot of water for the pasta. I then set the pot of water over the stove but put it over low heat. I planned to freshen up a little and cook the pasta nearer the serving time. I then went to the guest bathroom to shower and change clothes. After freshening up, I headed back to the kitchen. On my way back, I asked Sasha, who was in the living room, where Clark was. She said that he was on his way and would be back in 20 minutes. She then told me this: "Oh, by the way, I tasted your tomato sauce, and it lacks salt. I saw this video and the chef said that the sauce should be as salty as the sea. Don't worry, I've already fixed your sauce." You're welcome. I thought she was kidding, so I just responded with, "Thanks, I guess." I was also worried if she oversalted my sauce. I quickly made my way back to the kitchen to taste my sauce. To my horror, my complex, balanced sauce was now as salty as the Dead Sea. I was fuming because my sauce was ruined by, in Gordon Ramsay's words, an idiot sandwich. She definitely misheard the advice from the video because you're supposed to have the pasta water as salty as the sea, not the sauce. I wanted to scold Sasha for ruining my sauce, but I had to fix my sauce first because my friends were bound to arrive in less than an hour. Unfortunately, I don't have the time or the ingredients to make a new sauce. I added a mix of lemon juice and honey, a can of crushed tomatoes, tomato paste, and splashes of water. I minimized the saltiness of the sauce, but the sauce was still off. I was thinking of no longer serving my dish, but my friends were excited about my food, and I didn't want to waste food. I just hoped no one would notice how bad the sauce was. My friends arrived, we all sat at the dinner table, and we all got a portion of each dish. While we were eating, I noticed my friends were pushing my pasta to the sides of their plates. Once everyone was ready for dessert, I offered to help Lexi prepare and serve the desserts. Lexi is also a foodie, but she's a baker and she's excellent at making pastries and desserts. When Lexi and I were alone in the kitchen, she asked me why my pasta was so salty. That's when I told her everything. I then told Lexi that I'd let it go for the meantime, and we should just enjoy the rest of the night. I was doing so well to not show I was bothered, but then Clark, along with Sasha, approached me and said my pasta dish was saltier than he remembered. I wanted to say that his GF ruined my dish, but I decided to allow her to own up for her mistake. So, I told him that I had no idea what went wrong. I mentioned that I properly salted my food, tasted the sauce as I went along, and made it a point to say my pasta water was seawater salty, but that has never affected the saltiness of my pasta dishes. When I said the pasta water thing, I made sure to look at Sasha. She did not say anything. I just ended the conversation by saying I sometimes have my off days. The rest of the night went well, I even won some of the games, which kind of lifted my spirits from the pasta debacle. Before I left Clark's house, I asked him if he was keeping the leftovers. He said he was taking half, so I offered to take home the other half. It's been a week since the pasta incident and I still feel disrespected by what Sasha did. I want to tell my best friend that his GF fucked up my dish, but I don't want to make a big issue over pasta sauce. How would you go about this? Update: I've been reading everyone's comments and I would like to thank everyone for their advice. I generally feel uncomfortable with confrontations, which is why I let it slide and even took the blame. But now I realize that I should stand up for myself more, be more proud of the work I do, and I shouldn't be concerned about sparing Sasha's feelings because, in the first place, she disrespected me. I have to put her in her place. Some of you thought that she either hated me or was jealous of me. I have no idea if she does. In the 4 months, Clark and her have been dating, I've only met her twice or thrice and we didn't even interact much. I'm now even more compelled to tell Clark about what she did, because if she's able to disrespect the boundaries of a stranger to her, who knows what boundaries she'll cross with a romantic partner. I've messaged Clark to meet up, without Sasha, for lunch tomorrow, and he agreed. I'll probably update everyone after my lunch with Clark. Top comments. Commenter 1, your GF emptied the salt container in the sauce after I finished it. I tried to fix it, but well, you tasted the result. Commenter 2, I'd have told the truth as soon as it came up. I'd also have told Sasha I didn't appreciate her help. Commenter 3, you should not have protected her, especially in the conversation with Clark. You should have outed her idiocy right then and there. Why didn't you? That's not being polite, that's being a doormat. Stop that. Find your spine and stand up for yourself. Now everyone thinks you screwed up instead of the real fact that his idiot girlfriend ruined it. Commenter 4, I am now very angry with OP for not saying anything when the issue came up than I am with Sasha for staying quiet. Update, I met with Clark for lunch to tell him about last week's board game night. I told him that Sasha oversalted my sauce because of a video she saw, and I tried my best to fix it but failed. I also allowed her to fess up, but she stayed silent. I apologized for lying to him by taking the blame for her mistake because I was afraid of confrontation, and I didn't want the rest of the game night to be ruined by throwing her under the bus. I was afraid that he wouldn't believe me and that I was deflecting the blame back to Sasha. Instead, he said, that makes much more sense. He then told me more about Sasha. When he met Sasha, she was trying to make lifestyle content. Currently, she wants to make cooking videos, but the videos she watched for inspiration were cooking hacks, where people were dumping dried pasta, raw meat, tons of cheese, etc. in a baking dish and then throwing it in the oven to cook. She even saw the countertop spaghetti video which she wanted to make for Clark's dad and sister when they were over at his house during the holidays. He refused to let her do that. Before we finished our meal, I told Clark to talk to his GF and I expect an apology from her and for her to also apologize to the rest of our friends for ruining last week's dinner. He asked me if I wanted to go to his place to get an apology now because Sasha was there. I declined because it would feel like we were forcing an apology from her by surprising her. After a few hours, I got a call from Clark. They got into a huge fight, and they broke up. When he asked her to apologize, she refused and threw a fit. She was so annoyed that Clark would rave about me and Lexi's food but never did the same when she cooked for him. He said that he always thanked and appreciated her efforts but sometimes her cooking didn't go well. She served him raw chicken twice. In her rant, she said that her fixing the sauce was her way of saying that she was better than me, but when her plan backfired, she kept quiet and let me take the blame, and I dumbly fell on that sword. Some of you in the comments from the previous post were right, but what got Clark to break up with her was when she called Clark and our friend group a bunch of useless losers. He, in turn, defended us by saying that we were the most reliable supportive group of friends he's ever had. We helped him get through his mom's terminal cancer diagnosis and passing. He told her to get out and they were over. Clark assured me he'd be okay, and he needed some space. I told him to call if he needed anything. It seems I won't be getting my apology, but that's what I get for not speaking up. Lesson learned. At least we won't have Sasha for our next game night, which I'll host. Top comments. Commenter 1, I'm glad you told your friend the truth, and she ended up exposing herself as a red flag. Hope your turn hosting game night goes well. Commenter 2, and that OP is why you need to stand up for yourself and not expect other people to do it for you. Well done. Clark suspected already. This is definitely crazy that came from her and you have cut toxic shit out of your friend group. Decent adulating. If there is a next time, call out the BS earlier. Commenter 3, those cooking videos where the people dump everything into a pan and let it cook are utterly disgusting. I've seen one where they dump store pasta, water, raw mince into a baking dish and then add way too much salt before covering the entire thing with Velveeta cheese. They are utterly disgusting. Stories number 8. Aita for not letting my friends use my backyard for their wedding because they do not want me to bring a +1. Here is the situation. Last summer, I bought my grandparents' house. This house was the hangout spot for my friends and I throughout our childhood. This includes my friend, Dave. The house has a sizable amount of land, which includes a lake and a gazebo. I was supposed to buy the house with my now ex-girlfriend, Leslie, but, going through the process of getting approved to buy, I found out that she has massive amounts of credit card and personal debt that she hid from me throughout our 4 years together. I decided to break up as a result. That was about 6 months ago. I met Leslie because Dave's long-term girlfriend, Kim, is Leslie's cousin. Dave and Kim are engaged and set to get married in April. When I was buying the house, they asked if they could have the ceremony at the gazebo, which I agreed to do. In December, I started dating again. Leslie has not taken this well at all. She thinks we are going to get back together and has tried multiple times to make that happen. I have told her in no uncertain terms that isn't happening. Dave and Kim have asked me to not bring a +1 to the wedding for Leslie's sake. I have told them that this request is ridiculous. This wedding is happening at my house, using my land, and I am not allowed to bring a date because of a crazy ex. If that is the case, then they need to find a new venue for the wedding. They are pissed about this given the short time frame of when the wedding is supposed to happen. So, we are at an impasse. Aita Reddit. I have seen a few things brought up a number of times in the comments, so I will quickly address them here. I am fully aware of the liability issues, which is why I purchased, and they reimbursed me for a special event insurance policy which will provide 100% coverage for any damages, claims, injuries, etc. to any of the property or persons up to $2 million. It is one of the first things we did after I agreed to have the event in my home. The wedding will have a maximum, if every comes, of 75 guests, 5 catering staff, and 5 security staff. The security is because this is an open area that anyone walking past can access. The house has hosted events twice this size and logistically it has been fine. On the property are 2 cottages, one with 1 bathroom and the other with 2 bathrooms. The only portion of my house that will not be locked during the wedding is the finished basement. The basement has 2 bathrooms. Every person who is single, i.e. not in an established relationship, received an invitation with a +1, including me and Leslie. This talk came after I sent in my return card and indicated I was bringing a +1. Now, they are saying they do not want me to have the +1 because Leslie blew up about it and they are afraid of a blow-up at the wedding. Leslie indicated she intends to bring someone on her card. I do not know if she will actually bring someone. Some of OOP's comments. Top commenter, Poll and Uno reverse. Tell them Leslie isn't allowed on your property and watch their heads explode. Reply, the petty part of me did absolutely consider saying, well, Leslie cannot come to my house or on my land so it shouldn't be a problem. Commenter, out of curiosity, are either you and or Leslie in the wedding party? Reply, Leslie is in the wedding party. Dave is the youngest of 5 boys, so all his groomsmen are his brothers. Commenter, this one is really tough. I'm going with ESH, although it was more or less a toss-up with that and NAH. Listen, I get it, it's your house, and you're doing them a favor. But is bringing a date when you've been dating again for 2 months really a hill you want your friendship to die on? She isn't just your ex, she is the bride's family. Can't you go it alone for this one day? Or bring a friend instead of romantic interest so you aren't intentionally causing drama at your friend's wedding? If you take the venue out of it, would you expect to bring a date? And if the answer is no, did you tell them when you said you could use the house that there was such a big string attached? Their wedding is in April, telling them to find somewhere else at this point is a huge most likely friendship ending thing. Reply, I do not consider this a big string attached. All of our single friends have a +1. Leslie has a +1. I am literally the only person, who is not in an established couple, they do not want to have a +1. I would expect to be treated like every other guest. I know Leslie is Kim's family, but Dave and I have been family to each other. I have known Dave since I was 3 years old. We grew up together. This makes it feel like we are not as close as I previously thought, and if I knew they would ever consider treating me like a stranger, which is what this feels like, I absolutely would have never agreed to let them use my land for the wedding. To a commenter, for the last 6 months, my life, because of Leslie, has been drama. Every person who will be at the wedding is in some way or form connected to the drama. The woman I am dating is not. I want someone who is disconnected from this drama, who I do not feel like I have to walk on eggshells around. My peace also matters. All I am asking is for them to tell Leslie, just act like an adult for 4 hours. But, instead, they rather have me be uncomfortable than to have that talk. When I am doing what I can to help them with this wedding. Why security? Reply, security is to keep people out. This is an open area. To another commenter, the wedding is outside. I have acres of land and it is largely unfenced, including this section. Any stranger could easily walk up on the event. Commenter, one thing, you are not entitled to Leslie's financial information as a boyfriend, even a long-term boyfriend. She was not hiding it from you, it was none of your business. It became your business when merging finances became a likelihood. Reply, I am entitled to not being told lies. In conversations about finances, she misrepresented her financial status. She is the one who initiated our conversations about money about 6 months into the relationship and then hid information for years about her financial situation. She demanded to know about my income, debt, and savings. I provided it because I thought we were planning a future together. I asked for the same information and she described her credit card debt as very little. Sorry, but $50,000 of CC debt is not very little. If her view was, you do not have a right to know, then okay. But, that was not her view at all. So, yeah, she hid it from me. Commenter, how much debt was she in aside from the $50K? Reply, about $30,000 in student loans and owes about $20,000 on a car. We could pay off the credit card debt in probably about 3 years' time. My issue is her lying about it. I lost trust in her. Commenter, 75 guests, is 74 plus, so not small. Why they are thinking of having someone at the wedding who they even say is going to go nuts to the homeowner is belong me. I'm sorry to say this, but I don't think Dave's ever been your friend. I think he's always been a friend to the family's money. You do say as a child he used to hang out at your grandparents' house. Reply, this whole thing is making me reassess our relationship. There are people who left our friend group over the years citing Dave's selfishness as part of the reason. To a downvoted, be the bigger person, comment, I liked OOP's response. As my therapist says, being the bigger person does not mean allowing yourself to be stepped on. It means loving people when they do not deserve it. And love rarely looks like capitulation. Update post. So, I met with Dave this morning. We talked for almost 2 hours about everything. I laid it out that I thought he was, at best, a shitty friend. I went through our long history of various things over the years that has me questioning our friendship. That was the bulk of our conversation. We then turned to the breakup with Leslie and the shit show of the last 6 months. Throughout the last 6 months, despite Leslie's craziness, I have bent over backwards to try and accommodate her feelings. She has shown up to my house in the middle of the night. I did not go for a restraining order. When I go out, I do not go to places I know that her and her family like to go. She has implied to her family and mutual friends, at various times, that I cheated and or that I took advantage of her financially. neither of which is true at all. I have held my tongue to not embarrass her about these things in front of her friends and family. Dave knows all that and yet is demanding, once again, that I put Leslie's feelings before my own. I said, you and everyone need to stop coddling her like she is a fucking child. Dave concedes that Leslie has been crazy and ridiculous since the breakup. But, he says, she feels she did not get closure after the relationship. She wants to have an evening where she can talk to you to get that closure. He also told me that Leslie has been very vigilant about paying off her debt and paid off almost $10,000 of the credit card debt. She wants to talk to me about her progress. To see if that might cause me to change my mind. It will not. I asked him, so, do you expect me to go to the wedding and talk to her? Because I have her blocked everywhere and, date or not, I do not plan to say a single mumbling word to her. He said, I fully expect she would lose it if y'all do not talk at the wedding. I told him if that is the case, then, for the good of my property, I can't have Leslie come. If she is so unstable that I need to be coerced into a conversation with her, she is too unsafe to be a guest, in any capacity in my home. So, I have told him, based on what he has told me, Leslie cannot come to my house or on my land. I am willing to still have the wedding at my place, but I cannot trust Leslie won't do something given what you are telling me. Dave lost it at this point. He said, fuck you and your shit. I don't need it. So, I said, then the wedding is off. He left. So, that is the state of things. Some of OOP's comments. Editor's note, OOP only replied to the more controversial and downvoted comments. I included these couple because they gave more insight into his background and to show how he refuted several of the common downvoted critiques. Commenter, my peace of mind matters and I offered a solution that keeps the peace, while also not exposing me to the chaos that is Leslie. Leslie does not come to the wedding. I would have been willing to let them have it at my place then. I would be willing to not come to the wedding myself to make it fair. Meeting speaking with Leslie is not keeping the peace. It disrupts my peace of mind. Commenter, you handled this awfully. You don't start a heart-to-heart about your ex-girlfriend by laying out every grievance you've ever had in your relationship with Dave. Where do you expect him to be mentally emotionally when you even start the conversation about your ex? No wonder he blew up at the end, he felt attacked. Reply, this was not a heart-to-heart about my ex. This was a heart-to-heart with Dave about our relationship, his and mine. We have talked about Leslie. I was done with those discussions months ago. I made that clear when setting it up. Because I understand Leslie's position, I under Kim's position, but I did not understand Dave's position. He knew all the shit and was still acting that way. Commenter, not downvoted when originally put in this post, I think wealth attracts assholes, and I think OP is probably a bit sheltered cognitively that his wealth has always given him power over people's behavior to a certain extent, and I think a large part of the shock for OP here is that the friend is walking away from that dynamic. Reply, I have no idea why you think that I grew up wealthy and sheltered. I did not. You notice I did not mention my parents in the post. That is because my parents were too broke to care for me, as determined by the state. My grandparents had enough to where I could grow up middle class, meaning, no worries about my basic necessities, clothing, food, and shelter. But, anything beyond those was on me. College was paid for by scholarships and work-study jobs. Grad school was paid for by my employer. I now make relatively good money and that money stretches quite far because I live in a fairly low-cost rural community and have no kids. If I lived where my job's office is located, would be living in a 2-bedroom apartment with a roommate. And Dave and I's dynamic historically has been me going along with whatever he wants, often to my detriment. I think that is why they came to me rather than even attempt to get Leslie to behave. My shock is that I thought he legitimately cared about my feelings and well-being. This experience makes it clear he does not. Editor's note. I can't for the life of me figure out how to better convey that this sub has a 7-day waiting period and this hasn't been posted here before. It's in all caps at the top and now at the bottom. Also, if OOP doesn't reply to positive comments, there isn't a lot I can do. I've been bitched at before for including comments that OOP doesn't address because it makes the post too long. I even included the top comment in this post and always make sure to indicate which comments are downvoted, and even made a note for one I included just because I liked the OOP's response. I also try to not include all of the downvoted comments themselves and just include part or summarize the comment so that it's clear I'm including OOP's response. I also included more positive or neutral comments in the first post even though OOP replied to far more negative comments than he did positive. I genuinely can't please everyone here and it gets pretty frustrating to have people bitching at me about including too many things or not enough things when this is Reddit and there is no compensation or value in this for me. If you have a suggestion on formatting, I always listen and take them into consideration. That's how I started including length between posts and why I'm always willing to adjust trigger warnings or mood spoilers. But there is no need to be rude. Stories number 9. I, 20M, constantly told my partner, 21F, she's the prettiest girl in the whole world. She can't say it back. I see no one else when I'm in love. No celebrities, no coworkers, not a girl on the street. My partner is supremely attractive to me. A year ago I broke up with my partner because we weren't physical. It was great except I felt very ugly with her. I told her as often as I could I thought she was the most beautiful person alive, and never heard it back. I've transformed my body and tried to rekindle things recently, but I told her if she can't see me how I see her I'm not interested. She confessed that I'm not the most attractive person to her, not the most handsome man, what have you. She said I'm the most attractive man she's been with and I told her it wasn't enough for me. I told her, I don't want to feel like the best you can do, I want to feel like if you could have anyone it would be me. The way I made you feel, there ain't anyone that has shit on her. She says I'll be closer to my goal if I get abs, I'm in real good shape I just have a dad bod, but I know there are girls who would see me the way I want the way I am now. A few have tried to have their way with me since the breakup and one even told me as much. It's a shame I'm so hooked on my ex. I don't want to feel like my partner has wandering eyes, I want to feel like the only boy in the world. Maybe that sounds like I'm a princess, but damn it if I'm dishing that out, I want it in return. Was it stupid to have left a good thing because I'm not the most beautiful thing in the world in the eyes of my partner? I'm not asking about morals, I'd like to hear your personal opinions. Thank you. Edit, I realized how shallow this is. I'm not talking about conventional beauty. I'm describing something that comes after you learn someone intimately, after you see their heart. Suddenly it's like everyone else's attractive features don't exist. This one person is all you see. No one even comes close. She never felt that way for me. Stories number 10. Anti-vax employee is pressuring a coworker not to vaccinate her baby. I have 3 people who I have supervised for the last 3 years. Although I am not their official manager, I am the person who handles the bulk of their day-to-day responsibilities. I'll call them Cordelia, Willow, and Dawn. All 3 are hard workers and are good at their jobs. They are also friends and the 3 of them often enjoy eating lunch together at one of their desks most days. Cordelia has always been kind of a big personality. She goes above and beyond at work but also in her personal life, and is busy every single weekend and most evenings. She is one of those people who just always seems to have loads of energy and opinions. I like her, but also find her a little bit exhausting. About 10 years ago, before I worked here, Cordelia had a baby who tragically passed away before his first birthday. His death was about a week after he had received several of the usual 6-month infant vaccines. Cordelia has blamed his death on the vaccines and is an anti-vaxxer. She has mentioned that she was relieved that our company decided not to require COVID-19 vaccines or boosters, because she would have had to quit because she absolutely will not get any vaccines. I don't agree with her stance, but I'm also not going to argue with a coworker about medical stuff that isn't a core part of our jobs, and even more, I am not comfortable being overly confrontational with a grieving parent. She understandably still grows upset and cries when something reminds her of her baby. Each fall, my company arranges for flu shots to be available on site for one afternoon for employees. My first year here, I overheard Cordelia telling Willow not to get the flu shot. Willow tends to smile and nod, and then ignore Cordelia and do whatever she was planning to do, so no actual harm was done. However, I did speak to Cordelia about it and explain that she was certainly welcome to make her own healthcare decisions and not get a flu shot, but that other people were allowed to, and she couldn't discourage them ahead of time or criticize them afterwards. I did keep a close watch on her at the time, and again last fall when flu shots were offered again, and there was no recurrence. I also checked in with Willow, who just laughed and said she got the shot every year. This felt like it was dealt with. Then Dawn shared that she is pregnant. It's her first, and she and her husband are thrilled. It's all really lovely and exciting, except, you've almost certainly worked out where this is going. Cordelia has been telling Dawn that she needs to not give her baby any vaccinations, even if she needs to fight with her doctor about it. What is my responsibility here? Dawn is an adult, though a young one, and she has family and a doctor to help advise her. On the other hand, she seems to be listening to Cordelia on this matter. Do I speak to Cordelia again, like I did with the company-offered flu shots? This feels different. Do I stay out of it? Do I step in? Most of these conversations are happening outside of work. I just happened to be there during a lunchtime chat where it was clear that this was an ongoing topic. I'm not sure what to do, please advise. Update. I really appreciated your advice and several of the thoughts from the commenters as well. I have weekly one-on-ones with each member of my team, so after reading your response, I used that next meeting with Cordelia as an opportunity to step in, after taking care of our usual business. I used the framing about how if the roles were reversed, if Dawn didn't want to vaccinate and someone was pressuring her to, I would need to shut that conversation down, because Dawn deserves to be able to come to work and not be questioned or hassled about any or all of her medical decisions, just like you, Cordelia. I would never let anyone pressure you or give you a hard time about not getting vaccinated, and now I need you to give your coworker that same respect. She teared up and said, I just wish someone would have told me not to give my little boy all of those poisonous shots, he would still be alive now, and then started sobbing. It was horrible. I gave her some tissues and a little bit of time. After a reasonable amount of time, I told her that I understood that Dawn's pregnancy might have brought up a lot of really hard and painful memories for her, and that I was ready to support her in any way that was reasonable, but that did not and could not include pressuring Dawn in any way. She nodded and said that she understood. At this point, there were less than 30 minutes left in the workday, and I asked if she wanted to go ahead and leave a little bit early. She agreed, got her coat, and left work. I stayed at my desk for a few more minutes to steady myself. I am not someone who typically makes other people cry, and even though I knew I was doing the right thing, it was still deeply unpleasant. Once I felt like myself again, I went to Dawn's desk to check in with her. After asking if she was okay, I said that I'm sure she had already noticed that pregnant women often get a lot of unsolicited advice and information, and that if she was ever feeling pressured or harassed by a coworker to please let me know, because that wasn't acceptable at work. She said, "Oh, that's why Cordelia was upset. Thanks for talking to her. I really appreciate it." I told her I was happy to do it, that it was my job, and that I was sorry it had taken me so long to notice and put a stop to it originally, but that if there were any further issues, please let me know right away. We had our regularly scheduled one-on-one 2 days later, and I reiterated this point, but she said everything was good. Cordelia has seemed more or less like her usual gregarious self since then. The three of them have continued to have lunch together most days, and as far as I can tell without truly egregious eavesdropping, haven't been talking about anything more serious than the weather, very cold, Taylor Swift, very talented, and Willow's new haircut, very cute. Dawn is just a few weeks away from going on her maternity leave, and is as happy, anxious, excited, and exhausted as you might expect. As far as I can tell, this particular issue is entirely resolved. Also, thank goodness for this blog. I am someone who ended up in this role because I was very good at doing the work that Cordelia, Willow, and Dawn are doing, so I guess my bosses figured that I would be naturally good at supervising people doing that same work. But I don't have any previous experience with managing people, and even with just 3 people, it is really hard, it doesn't come naturally to me at all. I'm very thankful to have this collection of good advice to read, and when push really came to shove, to be able to ask my specific question. Thanks again. Stories number 11. Aita for telling my girlfriend I wouldn't make her coffee anymore unless she stops micromanaging me. I, 24M, and my girlfriend, 23F, have been together for about 2 years, living together for roughly 6 months. Normally, we have a good routine. I wake up first, make coffee, and she wakes up to a nice hot cup. Recently, though, she started getting really particular about how she wants it done. She insists on using this super specific method: measure the grounds to the exact gram, pre-warm the mug in the microwave for 30 seconds, add the milk at a certain temperature, and on and on. At first, I tried to oblige because hey, if she loves coffee that much, I want to make it nice for her. But it got to a point where every time I handed her a cup, she'd grill me: did you weigh the grounds first? Did you warm the mug? Is this whole milk or 2%? If anything was off, even by a tiny bit, she'd sigh and say it wasn't as good as the right way. One morning, she literally took the mug from me, dumped it down the sink, and started the process herself, while ranting that I never do it the right way. I got frustrated and told her, if you're going to be this picky, just make your own coffee. I'm done making something only to be told how it's wrong every time. She got upset and said I was overreacting, that she just wants her coffee a certain way, and that I should respect her preferences. I argued that I was respecting her preference, I just didn't appreciate the constant criticism or micromanaging. She accused me of being lazy and unaccommodating. Now, I'm feeling guilty because I do want her to enjoy her morning coffee, but I'm also tired of feeling like I'm a barista under constant scrutiny. Aita for telling her she can just handle it herself until she stops micromanaging me. Or should I just suck it up and follow her super detailed instructions? Stories number 12. My husband lied about coming to help me while I was critically sick. I, 28F, have been married to my husband, 32M, for 3 years. We have a 1-year-old daughter together. Up until recently, I thought I could count on him when I truly needed him. But last week, he proved me completely wrong. I had been feeling off for a couple of days, fatigued, nauseous, just generally unwell. Then one morning, I woke up with a fever, chills, and a deep sense that something was really wrong. I was so weak I could barely get out of bed. Taking care of our daughter felt impossible. I called my husband at work and told him I needed him to come home. He promised he would. An hour passed. Then 2. He kept texting me, saying he was just finishing up something and would leave soon. Then he claimed he was stuck in traffic. Then he said he was on his way but had to stop for gas. At this point, my fever was getting worse, and I was struggling to even sit up without feeling dizzy. I told him it was urgent. He reassured me he was almost there, but something felt off. So I texted one of his coworkers, someone I knew he was close with. The response I got sent a chill down my spine. He hasn't left yet. He's still here. I was furious. And terrified. I immediately called my neighbor, a kind older. She came over right away, helped me get dressed, and drove me to the hospital. Turns out, I had a severe asymptomatic urinary tract infection that had turned into a serious kidney infection. My heart rate was dangerously high, and the doctors told me that if I had waited much longer, I could have gone into septic shock. 2 hours later, while I was lying in that hospital bed, shaking from fever and hooked up to N4, my husband finally decided to show up. I didn't even want to look at him. He tried to explain, saying he didn't realize it was that bad and that he was just trying to wrap things up at work. But I can't get over the fact that he lied to me, over and over, while I was at home struggling to stay conscious. If my neighbor hadn't been there, I don't know what would have happened to me. I feel so betrayed. If he could ignore me in a life-threatening situation, what does that say about our marriage? About our future? About our daughter's safety if something ever happens again? I don't know what to do. Would you be able to trust your partner after something like this? Update: I'm feeling better and finally back home after a few days in the hospital. My parents came to pick up my daughter and took care of her while I was away. They live 4 hours away, so I hadn't asked for their help earlier. I didn't really get an apology from him. Just a bunch of excuses. He said he didn't think it was that serious, and I should have just gone to the neighbor if it was really that bad. I didn't argue, not because I agree, but because some of the comments I got made me realize some things. People asked if I'm the type to cry wolf, and that's why he didn't come. In 5 years of being together, I've only ever needed him to take me to the hospital once, when I gave birth to our daughter. He wasn't there when I was sick, and if he had come home, he probably wouldn't have done much anyway if it didn't need a hospital. But then someone asked me what I'd do if it was our daughter in my position, and he acted the same way. That hit me hard, and as dramatic as it sounds, I don't want to be with him anymore. I don't think I can ever trust him again. I've made an appointment with a lawyer, but of course, divorce takes time. I'm looking for an apartment, but the housing shortage is a nightmare. Since I live in a rural area, though, there's still hope. I haven't told him yet. He's acting like nothing's wrong, so I'm doing the same. I even saw comments suggesting that he might not have actually been at work, maybe using it as an excuse for something else. So, one night while he was sleeping, I checked his phone. I didn't find proof he wasn't at work, but I did find messages to women, multiple flirty ones and a Tinder app. These messages have been going on for months. He was also sending TikToks to his friends while I was sick, laughing and joking around with no real concern for me. He told me his boss refused to give him time off. I found no evidence that he even asked for time off or discussed my condition with anyone. I'm starting to suspect he lied, because if he really did ask, it would have been illegal for his boss to deny him leave where I live. At this point, I don't feel like confronting him. I just want out. I ignored the red flags before, the small lies, broken promises, and I shouldn't have. I thought he'd be there for me when it mattered most, but I guess I was naive. I never thought anyone could let me down like this. I'm not telling him I'm leaving until I'm ready. Just like he didn't tell me he wasn't coming. Stories number 13. Aita for refusing to give up my paid aisle seat so a mother could sit with her husband, even after a flight attendant asked me to move. I, 27M, was on a long flight and had paid extra for an aisle seat with extra legroom. Shortly after boarding, a flight attendant approached me and asked if I'd be willing to switch seats because a mother, mid-30s, wanted to sit next to her husband. I asked her they wanted to move me, and the flight attendant pointed to a middle seat at the back of the plane, less legroom, stuck between two strangers. I politely declined, explaining that I had paid extra for my seat. The mother looked annoyed and told me she needed to sit with her husband because flying alone with a baby is difficult. I told her I understood but that it wasn't my responsibility to fix their seating issue. She called me selfish, and I could hear some passengers muttering about me not helping a mother. Later during the flight, her husband came up to me and tried to guilt-trip me, saying, "It's just common decency to help a struggling parent." I told him that common decency should have been booking seats together in advance instead of expecting someone else to downgrade for them. For the rest of the flight, I got dirty looks from a few passengers, and when we landed, the mother muttered, "Must be nice to be that selfish." Aita for refusing to move. I feel like if they wanted to sit together, they should have planned ahead instead of expecting me to take a worse seat. Sick of going on airlines, man. Stories number 14. Aita, because I told my sister that any and all business she had with my husband is my business. So it was my birthday a few days ago, and holy hell did it end terribly. I don't care about my birthday but my kids do, so I let my husband do the bare minimum for me, but more for my kids to be able to sing and eat cake. Anyway, I am the middle of three, older sister, younger brother, and per my request, only my mom, my siblings, and their significant others and their kids were invited for a quick little dinner party type thing to celebrate another lap around the sun by me. Well, after dinner, everyone scattered through the house and the yard just hanging out, normal gathering stuff. Then out of nowhere my sister comes to me asking me where my husband was. I told her that I had no idea, probably in the garage where he tends to be a lot of the time messing with his tools. Since her husband was unable to join for dinner because he worked late, my husband was more doing his own thing during the festivities. Our husbands get along well, so when we all get together like this, they just hang out together. She told me she already checked there and he wasn't there, so I said then ick, and went back to talking with my bro. She comes back shortly after, and again asks me for my husband. I still didn't know, I had been inside in the same spot with my brother the whole time. When she asked me a third time, I told her that I still hadn't seen him, and asked her what she needed him for. She straight up tells me that it was none of my business. Like, what? I felt so disrespected. All I said was that it sure as hell was my business why she needed him because he is my husband and that she is only connected to him through me. I did have a bit of an attitude when I said it NGL, but her reaction threw me off. She basically accused me of accusing her of wanting my husband, not where my brain was at all, and it turned into an argument and I got called a bitch a few times. We didn't yell at one another, but there was attitude and a few F-bombs from my part. I tend to have a sailor's mouth, even when I am not angry. My mom was nearby and said that my reaction was uncalled for. My brother said that her saying it wasn't my business wasn't that big of a deal. That maybe she wanted to have him help her surprise me or something since it was my birthday. He didn't think I overreacted, but that the entire argument was pointless. My sister gathered her kids and took off angry at me. Was I the asshole? Considering she was looking for him for a while, and asked me about him multiple times, I didn't think I overstepped in asking what she needed him for. Maybe I could have helped her. Little backstory. My sister tends to bug my husband for favors like checking her car. He is a hobby mechanic, helping carry heavy stuff from one place to another, even if her husband is present, or if we are at my mom's house and she shows up with a lot of stuff, she will ask my husband for help, etc. My husband is very active and is used to making himself useful no matter the situation. All of his brothers are like this. He also doesn't like being rude, so he never says no. Maybe this played a part in my being bothered. Her husband is not like my husband, and I don't feel the need to ask him for any favors the way my sister always asks my husband, because I have my own husband. And even if I was to ever ask her husband for anything, and she would ask me what about, I would obviously tell her. He is her husband. Update. Oh wow, I did not think this post would have so much traction. I haven't talked to my siblings or mom since it happened. For starters, you guys are funny. My husband wasn't in hiding or avoiding anyone, lol. I think it is important to note that we live in a house with a pretty big yard, like a ranch, but without the animals. My sister probably just didn't go far enough to find him. I did ask him after it all went down where he was. He came in confused after my sis took her kids to ask why they left. Turns out he was all over the place throughout the festivities. He was playing with the kids for one bit, then was at the gate with the neighbor whom he shared a beer with since they're cool, with my dad for another bit, was indeed in the garage yet another bit, etc. I told her to go look there because that's where he usually is when he goes missing. When my BIL is around, they're easy to find because they tend to kick it in one spot, drinking and whatnot. Like I said in my post, my husband is always in motion. He chills when he is with someone is there to chill with him, if not he is never in the same spot. Makes sense. Also, people seem to think he just set up the gathering and took off, which wrong, lol. He did celebrate with me and interacted with everyone throughout and whatnot, we were just not together at every single moment. People also said I seemed controlling. I am not my husband's keeper as many stated, and I do trust him. I don't keep tabs on him, which is why wherever he was, I was unaware, nor did I care because I was under the impression he was just hanging out somewhere else. And I only asked her why she needed him because of her persistence, and to see if maybe she needed something I could help with instead. I have talked to him about continuously helping her in the past, and have told him that she has her own husband, she could ask him. To which he always responds, I know but I'm right there, I don't mind, my bil is kinda lazy and my husband sees it more as a favor to his buddy than to my sister. He isn't like that with just her, for the record, he's like that with everyone. I do find it annoying sometimes, but his brothers and his mom are the very same. I get more annoyed at my sister, because I do agree that she takes advantage of his helpful nature, but so does my mom. My dad is fragile, can't lift heavy things, etc. So same thing, my husband sees it as doing it for my dad. Now, as some people mentioned, if it would have been a playful, none of your business, I would have reacted differently, because my mind did go to a possible surprise too like so many of you. But she had a tone when she said it, and it seemed less, wait and see, yay, and more of a, mind your business, and yes I was annoyed. I am also the type of person that depending on the way things are said to me is how I will react. If it was something she felt she didn't want me to know, like something about her own husband, that's all she had to say and I would have understood. About my family siding with my sis, that is just how it is. I tend to be more monotone when I am mad, but I can be harsh. Like I said, I curse a lot. My sister is more sensitive and cries easily. My brother didn't side with anyone, I don't think. He just didn't think it was that big of a deal to lead to a whole argument. And OMG, I really hope everyone is wrong about her actually wanting my husband. Jealous that her husband isn't more like my husband? Maybe, and hopefully this is why she said that. I choose to believe it is the latter, for my own sanity. Thanks to this post I had to ask him if she has ever been weird with him or made him feel uncomfortable and he said no and I had to tell him what she said. His conclusion is what I hope is true, and more jealousy than a crush. About his phone, him and my bil have each other's numbers, but not him and my sister. I will not go through his phone, I don't need to. If he is driving and he gets a text, he will have me grab his phone to see who is messaging him. If he has to respond right away he will have me do it. He doesn't even have a password on his phone, that's how secretive he is, my goodness. Stories number 15. Aita for not giving my father money from my inheritance to pay for treatment for his stepkid. The deal is this. I, 19M, got an inheritance from my paternal grandparents 2 years ago. They left it in a trust for me that safeguarded it from everyone who might want to use it for their own purposes. This includes my father, their son. I got access to the money when I turned 19, a choice my grandparents made. I was the primary beneficiary and they left my father the lowest amount they could that would also prevent him from contesting their will. I haven't lived with my father in 5 years. When he met his wife he gave me 2 choices. Either agree to treat them all as family from day one and embrace her 2 kids, who were really young when they met, and accept she'll be the mom in the house and it makes her my mom too, or I can get the fuck out of his house and stop sponging off him. I chose to live with my maternal grandparents. My mom died when I was 6 for those who'll ask. My parents weren't together and mom was my primary caregiver, but my father had visitation weekends with me before mom died and then I lived with him. I think he blamed me for being born and resented my existence. He sure acted like that anyway, so I never interacted with his precious little family. I don't know his wife or her kids. I don't care about them and don't feel any sense of obligation to pretend they're my family, which is why I said no when he reached out to me a couple of months ago and asked me to give him money from my inheritance, $40K, to pay for treatment for one of his stepkids. He sent me a bunch of links about the condition and the treatment, which was I think in Switzerland or maybe Germany. He said the kid was getting worse and they were worried about it becoming fatal. Apparently this is a condition the kid always had but gets worse and doesn't have many treatment options yet. But they have this one, which is something. Honestly, I thought I'd blocked him on my socials, so the DM was a surprise. I said no and I blocked him and carried on. But then he texted me and I wondered how he got my number since I changed mine after I moved in with my grandparents. But he had my paternal grandparents' phones and he found my number on them. I told him to stop and he wasn't getting the money. He sent me some more info via texts and even shared their fundraising with me, which wasn't getting much. He said they'd consider this other place for treatment if they could get some money for it. I blocked the number and blocked the other texts that came through. I guess after enough silence he decided to bring others in and he sent my uncle after me. My uncle wanted to know why I said no and whether I'd considered using the money to make him pay for his treatment of me by making him legally obligated to pay me back with interest. I said no. I said I didn't want to help them and I wasn't giving any of my money. My uncle said I could help a kid, maybe save their life, and that should be considered over who that kid belongs to. Then he dropped the whole step-sibling thing and I told him to get lost, but I guess it made me think a bit. I don't feel guilty. Just reflective. Because I could give the $40K and I'm choosing not to. Hell, I think one of his texts increased how much he wanted me to give, but I could afford it anyway, and I'm just saying no. Stories number 16. Am I wrong for refusing to apologize to my husband's stepbrother after a misunderstanding? For clarification, since I could not edit my previous post, a lot of people gave me good ideas and tried to help me, but unfortunately I couldn't. So I'm making a new post with the same backstory a little bit more detailed. I truly do apologize for the confusion, so hopefully this clarifies everything. So now we have, Liam, my husband, 27M Maya, me, 30F Chris, the unmarried stepbrother, 45M David, the married stepbrother brother, 49M Emma, stepbrother sister-in-law, 49M. So, a little backstory, I moved thousands of miles away from everything I've ever known to be with my husband in the UK. Adjusting to a new country, culture, and family has been a huge transition, and I've been doing my best to navigate it. Recently, though, my husband's stepbrother has taken issue with me over something I honestly don't think was a big deal, but he's turned it into a huge thing and is now demanding an apology. Here's what happened. We attended a family gathering, and I kept my distance from Emma because, at our first meeting, she made little comments that made me uncomfortable. I get that she's been in the family for 20 years and is cautious because she's been through a lot, from what I was told, but that doesn't give her the right to make jabs at me during our first interaction, she said to me, flailing her hands. You belong on that side of the family, which is my husband's biological mother and his father. So, at the second gathering, I simply chose to stay out of the way rather than engage in another situation where I might feel uncomfortable again. I wasn't rude, I wasn't confrontational, I just kept to myself. Well, apparently, that was unacceptable. According to my husband's stepbrother, Chris, I was deliberately rude, disrespectful, and calculated because I didn't interact much with them. He even accused me of ignoring their 12-year-old son, which I didn't, and claimed I disrespected the hosts by eating their food without offering to help or saying a proper goodbye. For the record, I did say goodbye to people. I just wasn't overly engaging because I was trying to avoid any more uncomfortable situations. But instead of acknowledging that this might have been a simple misunderstanding, he has completely blown it out of proportion and put 100% of the blame on me like I'm some kind of villain. Then, to make things even more ridiculous, Chris got upset over me referring to myself as a daughter-in-law of the house. To me, it was just a normal thing to say. I am married into the family. My husband's stepmother is who I consider my mother-in-law because she has given me love since day one, and that was my decision and everybody was happy with it, which naturally makes me a stepdaughter-in-law. It wasn't meant as an insult to Emma, nor was I trying to take any title away from her. But Chris turned it into some huge sign of disrespect, acting like I was trying to challenge his place in the family, and replace her with myself, which is absolutely not the case. I was just trying to be part of the family dynamic, not replace anyone. I always wanted to be part of a loving family with love and devotion. Now, Chris is basically demanding that I apologize, saying that respect is non-negotiable and that elders deserve it no matter what. And look, I get respecting elders, but respect goes both ways. I'm not going to be forced into apologizing just to appease Chris and Emma, especially when they refuses to acknowledge that there was a misunderstanding or that Emma's behavior made me uncomfortable in the first place. He's acting like I committed some massive offense when all I did was try to navigate a situation that wasn't welcoming to me in the first place. Now, here's the kicker, my husband Liam is absolutely furious. He has spoken to my siblings, and we are all on the same page. This whole situation is beyond ridiculous. He is 100% standing up for me, and when this call happens, he will firmly make it clear that no one will ever dictate or bully his wife again. If they have a problem, they can take it up with him. No more cornering me, no more forcing me into apologies that I don't owe, and no more trying to make me the scapegoat. Absolutely unacceptable. We are not having an in-person conversation where I get sat down like a child and lectured. If they want to talk, it's happening over video call, or not at all. That's final. I seriously don't get why some families act like new in-laws have to earn respect while the old ones can do whatever they want. Respect goes both ways, and I'm done playing nice with people who don't extend the same courtesy. Stories number 17. My dad pulled a pew-pew on my husband. Last night my parents arrived from out of town to celebrate my 7-year-old birthday. My dad drove myself, my mom and my child to dinner. We decided to try another restaurant after cruising through our first option's busy parking lot. I gave my dad directions and he began to argue with me, determined he knew his way around better than the person living there. He then began driving erratically and I asked him to bring us home. He wouldn't and continued to the next restaurant. I said to bring us home again, but he again refused. I text my husband asking for a ride home and finally my dad agreed to take us back. He told me he was going to punch me in the face. My child began crying and screaming while my dad continued berating me through my pleas to stop doing this in front of her. Upon arriving home, my husband was in the kitchen, words were exchanged, my dad told my husband he was going to kick his ass, in our own home. A scuffle broke out and my husband ended up landing a punch to the side of my dad's face, which knocked my dad to the ground. My dad then stood up. At this point I'm walking into the house with my mom and child steps behind. I screamed upon seeing the blood from my dad's face. He then pulled a gun and aimed it at my husband's chest. Needless to say, my parents picked up to make the multiple-hour return trip home. I'm done with any sort of relationship with my parents, but I grieve the loss of having parents and my child having that grandparent relationship. Any advice is helpful, trying to wrap my head around this still. Stories number 18. My sister left for basic military training in the Air Force and things have taken a turn for the worse. 2 weeks ago my sister left for basic military training in the Air Force and 2 hours ago my mom got a call from my sister where she told us that she's being abused. My sister fractured her knee while at training and has been in an immense amount of pain because of it. Despite this, her instructor has continued to coerce her into continuing the training exercises at her expense. She has attempted to push through it, however, it's no surprise she wasn't able to physically do that given the nature of her injury. From what she told us, despite the state of her knee continuing to deteriorate, it's now at the point of intense swelling. Her instructor has continued to berate her, even going so far as to humiliate her by getting the other recruits to laugh at her for not being able to push through her injury. She is now sitting in a mental hospital for refusing the orders of her instructor. Is there anything that my mom and I can do for her? This is a nightmare. Edit. I posted this to our Air Force and I've gotten a lot of comments saying this type of thing is extremely unlikely to happen, so I'm going to hold off on doing anything drastic until I can get some more information. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to provide some insight. At this point, I'm fairly certain that my sis might just be going through it mentally to the point where she's lying to get out. We're gonna try our best to support her going forward using what I've learned here today. I appreciate you all so much. Stories number 19. Aita for being upset and want to file for a divorce when my wife went behind my back and become a surrogate for her best friend and her husband. Hello. First of all, I apologize if I made any mistake because I never use Reddit. But I just need outside opinions because a lot of people around me seem to tell me I'm overreacting. My niece suggested to post in this subreddit to open my eyes, so here I am. First of all, I, 31M, has been married to my wife, 31F, for 4 years. We met during high school, dated and got married. I'm an introvert but not antisocial. I can socialize just fine, but for some reason, I've never liked her best friend since high school, 31F, she always gives me the bad vibes. She's an extrovert, but to me, she's just someone who often oversteps people's boundaries under the guise of being friendly. Since we started dating, has always meddled in our relationship, saying that my wife was too good for a nerd like me, that my only redeeming quality was my face. I did tell to stop, and she did. Now, is more subtle and passive-aggressive. A year ago, and her husband of 2 years visited her in our house. It was weekend, so I was at home, helping my wife taking care of our 3-year-old son who was still 2-year-old at that time. After I put my son to sleep in his crib upstairs, I went down and overheard their conversation about starting medical procedures for surrogacy. I was appalled and asked them what were they talking about. The 3 were shocked to see me downstairs. I told them I absolutely disagree, especially since my wife's first pregnancy was very difficult. I was visibly upset and asked why they made this decision without consulting me. Made her own choice to have her tubes tied at 26, so why can't she consider someone younger or look into adoption? Why does it have to be my wife? Argument started and I told them to leave. Later that day, my wife showed a text from that she and her husband apologized and won't proceed with the plan. Last Monday, my wife felt unwell. I took her to the hospital despite her protest, where we found out she was pregnant. I was both happy and worried because of her first pregnancy. She was unusually quiet on the drive home. She then admitted she had secretly undergone IVF procedures since last year. I asked her how she was sure it was not mine. She told me after every session, she was told to not do the deed for 2 weeks. I remembered that sometimes she would refuse because of stress from work, and I always respected that. I felt heartbroken, betrayed, and disrespected. It felt like it was the last straw. She always sided with and tried to downplay disrespectful behavior towards me. So, I packed a bag with essentials and left to my parents' house. Before I leave, I told her I will file for a divorce and told my 3-year-old son that I would be going for a business trip. I haven't picked up her calls or responded her texts ever since, and I miss my son but couldn't talk or see him without seeing her. Seeing her would hurt me more. And her husband never reached out to me, showing how little respect they have towards me. My parents, elder sister, and my brother-in-law are on my side, but my friends, the rest of her family and some of my relatives told me to reconsider and think about our 3-year-old son. I admit I've been crying and drinking all week. The ones who on her side told me that I shouldn't be controlling and that her body, her choice. It was not my intention, but I was just hurt, sad and disappointed. I truly love her. Why am I upset? Why am I disappointed? I'm not the one that likes to be vulnerable and make a post about it, but here I am. So Aita. Tell me. Stories number 20. Aita for refusing to let my parents use my college fund for my brother's wedding. I, 18M, just turned 18 and recently got accepted into my dream university. My grandparents set up a college fund for me when I was born, and it has enough to cover most of my tuition. My parents have always known about this fund, and I've been planning my education around it. A few weeks ago, my older brother, 25M, announced that he's getting married. My parents are paying for most of the wedding but recently told me that they need to borrow from my college fund to cover extra costs. I was shocked and told them no, since that money was meant for my education. They argued that I could just take out student loans and that family comes first. My brother and his fiancée also called me selfish, saying I should help out since they want a big wedding. I refused again. Now, my parents are saying they're disappointed in me, and my brother isn't speaking to me. Aita for refusing to give up my college fund. Stories number 21. Aita for kicking out my husband after he went to go see and comfort his ex-girlfriend. I, 32F, and my husband, 38M, have been married for 3 years. Our relationship has had its ups and downs, but we're a relatively happy couple. Though, in the beginning of our relationship, he was also dating Angela, 24F, 5 years ago. I was unaware of this other relationship, but when I found out, I confronted him and he told me that since we weren't officially dating that he didn't know we were exclusive. I told him that if he didn't cut off this relationship with Angela, that I was going to break it off. We left it at that and we didn't talk for a while when he came to my apartment unexpectedly weeks later saying it was over with Angela and that he wanted to try again and asked me to be his girlfriend. Ever since then we have been a pretty normal couple. We have our moments but our relationship is going good and I believe he is my soul mate. Recently there's been an issue in our relationship though, Angela. 3 weeks ago, we were out running errands and went to a small boba shop that just opened up next to our local grocery store. As we were off to the side looking at the menu, from the corner of my eye I see a woman that looks similar to Angela walk in. I do a double take and sure enough it's her. I feel an intense amount of dread and hope that hubby doesn't see her. As I'm internally panicking, I hear a woman's voice call for my husband. And as you might have guessed, it was Angela. My husband turns around and they have a small but awkward conversation. The whole time I just disassociate and stare off to the distance until she asks my husband, "Is that your wife?" To which he just nods and holds my hand. I pretty much just awkwardly smile and prayed this encounter would end the whole time. Eventually she gets in line and we wait behind her. I felt so embarrassed, I immediately got out drinks and leave. That was that, until 2 weeks ago when I saw my husband's phone light up to a Facebook Messenger notification. I asked him who it was from as he never uses Messenger. He said it was from an old friend. I asked who and he said I wouldn't know. I became suspicious but wasn't necessarily worried because I just assumed it was a friend. Until a few days later when he got another Facebook Messenger notification while I was ordering food off his phone. It was from Angela. I was shocked and confused. I went to their messages and everything seemed friendly and casual, though because of their history, I felt very uncomfortable with them talking. I went up to him and confronted him about the texts and asked why she was texting him. He told me that after running into her she friended him on Facebook and they began talking. He assured me it was all casual but I still told him I didn't want him talking to her. He assured me he would stop. I told him to unfriend her to which he hesitated to but eventually did. There was no issue or word from Angela until last night, to which from my knowledge she spammed messaged my husband, and even called him crying telling him that her mother was sick. I guess he knew her mother and felt sympathy towards her. Angela vented to him about how she had no one and she just needed someone to comfort her. She asked my husband if he could come and be there for her to which he said yes. I had no idea he was doing this until I saw him putting his shoes on near the door. I asked him where he was going and he told me the story of Angela's mom and that she needed someone to be with her. I told him to not go, and we had a small argument. He was rushing out the door, so I blocked him in and said that if he was going to go see and comfort his ex-girlfriend, that he wasn't allowed back in. He scoffed and pushed past me. I watched as he left. I went back inside, poured a few drinks while I tried my hardest to not cry and blow up his phone. Eventually, 3 hours passed and he came back home. I sat on the couch during this and as he came in I told him that he wasn't allowed to sleep here. He was shocked, and we got into another argument and to cut it short. He told me he had nowhere to go so I told him that maybe he should go to Angela as they seem to help each other a lot. He then left again and I haven't heard anything from him. I'm currently staying up and have had a few drinks. I decided to post this on Reddit as I feel like I might have overreacted and been in a hole. I just need advice on how to handle this whole situation as I'm barely able to process what to do. I'm sorry if this was long, I needed to vent. Stories number 22. My teacher is offering my class a free 100 on a calculus test if we choose to give up our smartphones for 2 weeks. Should I take this offer? My teacher yesterday gave my calc class an offer to boost our average. She said this will require us storing our smartphones inside a Ziploc bag and then locking all of our phones inside a plastic container for 2 weeks if we choose to do this. If we choose to not do this, we have to take the test for the toughest unit of the year, which is improper integral sequences and series. Also, if we choose to get our smartphones back before the 2 weeks is up or we get caught with one, we're automatically disqualified from this free test credit. She also said that she will have our parents' guardians sign a form consenting to this. She said that this challenge will help us focus in class better and adopt better learning studying habits. She said that using our phones in class is a distraction to her lesson and the other students who want to learn. We're seniors in an all-boys private school. She said that we have to take school seriously to succeed in university next year if we graduate. She also went on about good jobs being scarce in the future due to automation and we have to step it up. So I'm thinking if I should get my parents to sign the form. My average in her class is a 72 so far for the quarter. The challenge starts on next Monday, March 3rd, and it ends on the 17th. So I have until Thursday night to make my decision, since she said the signed forms are due this Friday. She says we're lucky to have this opportunity since it's the first time in her 25 years of teaching that she's offering this. What should I do? Other teachers, do you think she's overstepping her authority or she's trying to help us? Stories number 23. My brother sent me a cease and desist and an invoice after a wellness check. What now? My brother, 33, has always been defensive, controlling, and resistant to any kind of feedback. Recently, his behavior has escalated into something much more alarming. After losing his tech job before the holidays of last year due to communication issues, which mirror the struggles I've always had with him, he became increasingly erratic. Note, he doesn't have health insurance and went off all medications. I tried saying something to him about how his behavior was concerning and said I really think he'd benefit from talking to a therapist. In reaction to that, he created a family group chat with me and my divorced parents accusing me and my mom of being alcoholics. I maybe have 5 drinks a year. He then flooded our family group chat with pages and pages of unrelated thoughts, selfish, and manipulative messages. Then, he ignored me and my family for days, which worried us, so I called the police for a wellness check. Well, I guess the police went, because he called me back, sounding threatening and told me he never wanted to see or hear from me again. He then sent me a cease and desist filled with absurd accusations, followed by an invoice charging me for his time talking to the police, at a rate of $200 per hour. Things only got stranger from there. Last Thursday, he sent our cousin a picture of a domestic protection order he was filing against him, claiming my cousin turned all his friends against him 15 years ago, when they were teenagers. As far as I know, domestic protection orders only apply to those you're in a romantic relationship with, not to family. At this point, I'm at a loss. I want him to get help, but any attempt to communicate with him results in extreme hostility or legal threats. What do I do? I blocked him after he told me he never wanted to hear from me again, but he seriously needs help and I feel bad that he's hurting other people now too. My cousin. Edit. My brother was addicted to H as a teenager, got clean for nearly 10 years and then started smoking weed, which left him very paranoid to the point he thought he was evicted. So he became homeless and while on the streets got addicted to meth. He's now been clean for several years. But I'm so worried he will be homeless again soon. Stories number 24. Aita for refusing to change my baby's name even though it makes my husband's family uncomfortable, since people keep asking about the religion. My husband's family follows a very niche sect of Independent Fundamental Baptists, IFB. They're not as strict as some, but certain members, especially his grandmother, hold specific beliefs about the moon. They have some fundamentalist interpretations of Isaiah 47 verses 12 to 14 and Deuteronomy 4 verse 19 which warn against celestial bodies being associated with deception, false gods, witchcraft, etc. About how you shouldn't worship celestial bodies. His grandmother in particular believes the moon is a symbol of instability and misfortune. My husband never took these beliefs that seriously growing up, so it wasn't something that crossed his mind when we picked the name. But once his family reacted the way they did, he started second-guessing it. It's less about him believing it himself and more about not wanting to upset his family. I personally think it's ridiculous, which is why I'm not budging on changing her name. So, I, 30F, gave birth to my daughter 6 weeks ago, and my husband, 32M, and I had already picked out her name months ago. Luna. We both loved it. It was meaningful to us because we had our first date on a night with a huge full moon, and it just felt right. Well, the moment we announced her name, my husband's family got weirdly quiet. I didn't think much of it at first, but later, his mom pulled him aside, and I could tell something was off. Turns out, in his family's very specific religious beliefs, which I honestly never paid much attention to because they're not super strict about it, the moon is considered a symbol of deceit and bad luck. Apparently, naming a baby after it is like setting them up for a lifetime of misfortune. His grandmother was so distressed that she literally started crying when she found out, saying we were cursing our daughter. I told them that while I respect their beliefs, they are their beliefs. Luna is a beautiful name, and we weren't going to change it. My husband was on my side at first, but now that he's seen how upset his family is, he's asking me to consider at least changing her legal name and just calling her Luna as a nickname. I think this is ridiculous. Our daughter is already named. She's had this name for over a month. Changing it now feels absurd. But now his family is openly calling me selfish, saying I should compromise for the sake of family peace. Aita for refusing to change my daughter's name even though it upsets his family. Stories number 25. I'm being accused of something I'd never do. I'm an elementary music teacher and I'm black, if that makes a difference. As we all know, it's Black History Month and I created a dress-up spirit week for next week. Here's what I chose. Monday, wear the colors of your country. Tuesday, blackout, wear all black clothing. Wednesday through Sunday best, dress for success. Thursday, Decades Day, wear 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s attire. Friday, I have a dream, pajama day. When I tell you this caused such an uproar from my colleagues. I was accused of promoting blackface with Blackout Day, then I was accused of implying that only black people go to church with Sunday Best Day, then I was accused of implying that all black people are only known for his disco. I am sick to my stomach that these people are 1, talking shit behind my back and not coming to my face with their issues. And 2, implying that I would be racist and promote things at my school with malicious intent. We have a faculty meeting next week. Should I say something or should I allow gossip to be gossip? Stories number 26. Aita for refusing to give up my honeymoon suite to my sister and her newborn. My 29M, wife, 28F, and I recently got married and booked a dream honeymoon at a beautiful resort. We splurged on the honeymoon suite, it's a once-in-a-lifetime trip. A week before we left, my sister, 31F, had an emergency C-section. Mom called, asking if we could downgrade our room so my sister, her husband, and their newborn could have our suite. They didn't plan a baby moon and now want a last-minute vacation to recover. I said absolutely not, we paid a fortune for this experience. My mom blew up, calling me selfish. My sister sent crying emojis, saying she's exhausted and could really use the peace. My dad says we should do the right thing and let them have it since we can honeymoon anytime. I feel bad she had a tough birth, but we worked hard for this trip. My wife says standing firm is the right call, but now half the family isn't speaking to us. Stories number 27. My 30F boyfriend, 30M, and father of my baby keeps telling me I poisoned our son by allowing his doctor to vaccinate him. Not sure where to go from here. Hi everyone, so my boyfriend and I have been together for 10 years and just recently had our first baby who is now 3 months old. Everything had been great and he has been an amazing father until his 2-month appointment where he received his first round of shots. Some backstory here, my BF and I had spoken about this when I was pregnant and although I knew he was somewhat skeptical about vaccines, he told me that he's okay with baby getting vaccinated. Right before his 2-month appointment, he suddenly decides that he's super anti-vax and out of nowhere is convinced that we are harming our son. He take our son to the appointment anyway and afterwards, my BF tells me that I poisoned our baby and that I'm a bad mom for doing so and that I should feel guilty for harming our baby. Hearing this mixed with the postpartum depression I am already experiencing just feels so shit. I try my absolute best to care for our son. He eventually did get over it, or so I thought. Our son has had dry and patchy skin since he was born, nothing crazy, just normal newborn skin stuff. I was putting on lotion on our baby tonight and my boyfriend out of nowhere says to me, that's a side effect of the vaccine, you poisoned him and you're going to continue letting them poison him. I just started bawling because I'm tired, I've had enough hearing about this and I just want to focus on being happy about our new baby. If he can't get over this, I have no clue what to do. I feel like anything I say just doesn't get through to him. I really would hate to leave him over something like this, but it's getting hard to recognize the man he used to be before all of this. Stories number 28. Mom switched my prom dress. My mom and I went prom dress shopping yesterday, and I found a red dress I felt super confident in. It was figure-hugging, and strapless with a slit on the right leg side. My mother kept saying things like, you should try a couple sizes up and maybe we could find one that doesn't hug your stomach so tightly. I loved that dress so much, but I tried some others on to make her happy and potentially see where she was coming from. I ended up purchasing the red dress I liked. After leaving the dress shop, my mom sent me off on my own to look for shoes to go with my dress. While I shopped, she bought some toiletries and car accessories from a nearby fragrance store. I found some shoes at a different location today, so I took my dress out of the bag to try it on with the shoes. To my dismay, the dress did not look or fit the same way the dress in the store did when I bought it. I looked at the tags, and it was not the same dress. My mother must have switched it out at some point. I told her I am not wearing that dress to prom, and she needs to find my dress or I will not even go. She keeps telling me it is such a fun experience and to just wear the dress and it will be fine, but I don't even have a date, so what is the point if I don't have a fitting dress? To clarify, the dress did not show cleavage, nor was it too short in any way. It went all the way to the floor, and the slit was right above my knee. The dress is not returnable 24 hours after it is purchased. Since it is strapless, it now does not stay up properly. She keeps telling me to get over it and just add straps to it, but my confidence is completely gone. Edit: this post is getting a lot of feedback, and it is greatly appreciated. I will most likely not be able to get to every comment, but I will do my best. I would like to thank everyone for the great advice I have been given, and I will update you if the situation improves. Stories number 29. Aita for telling my older brother I won't help him with his wife not getting deported. So I, F21, spoken to my older brother yesterday when he called me crying cause his wife might get deported. She's not a citizen yet but will be in hopefully a year. But apparently he voted for Trump. I asked him why he voted for Trump and his response pissed me off. He told me he doesn't think a woman should lead this country at all, and that all women are good for is being a housewife while the husband takes care of the bills. I then asked him what he wanted me to do, and he told me to help make sure she doesn't get deported. Now I voted for Harris. I am pissed off that he would ask for my help after he called me a sinner last month, and I told him he's uneducated and it shows. I also told that if you knew your wife was an undocumented immigrant then why would you vote for someone who wants to take your wife away? He told me he didn't think Trump was serious about it. And that he thought Trump would stop the LGBTQIA community. I yelled at him that I'm part of that community and that I will not help him out cause he did this by himself. And that I would not help someone who voted to take away my rights to marry who I want to marry and also to take away trans rights. He got mad and called me spiteful. I told him to seriously never contact me again, and that he's on his own. But I won't call ICE on her cause I have no bad blood towards her nor will I ever do that to my nieces and nephew. He then got in contact with our grandparents and they got mad at me for not being the bigger person and to help him out as he is still family. I told them both no, and if they continue to ask me to help him I will block them both. Aita for telling my older brother I won't help him with his wife. Or should I do it anyways and let go of the past? Edit: he wants me to give him all of my money out of my savings account which is close to $5,000 that I've been saving since I was 17 years old, for a new immigration lawyer. Stories number 30. Aita for break up my BF for take care of his daughter. I'm 33, Latina, and my boyfriend is 54, a white American. We recently got together and decided to merge our families. I have 2 daughters, 10 and 6, from my previous marriage, and he has a 7-year-old daughter with special needs from his. I have full custody of my kids, while he has 50% custody of his daughter. Our relationship was strong, we were emotionally and physically compatible, and he was committed to being a father figure to my children. We had plans to move in together temporarily before buying a house. However, from the start, I noticed issues with his ex-wife. She was a cheat, treated him poorly, and seemed disengaged from motherhood, despite their 50-50 custody agreement. In reality, he was the one consistently caring for their daughter, picking her up, dropping her off school, and stepping in whenever his ex decided she needed him. She also made unreasonable demands, like insisting I move my car from in front of his house for her convenience to avoid problems. I stopped staying over on weekdays. Things escalated when, on school breaks, she would still expect him to care for their daughter, even on her custody days. She is a teacher. Twice, she called him at 6 a.m., furious that he wasn't home to take their daughter when she was supposed to be responsible. I told him it wasn't his job to constantly cover for her, but he justified it by saying he didn't mind helping. He even celebrated when she promised not to rely on him in 2025, though I doubted she would follow through. Then, for Valentine's Day, I planned a romantic getaway for the entire long weekend. But when I told him, he said he could only stay until Sunday because his ex asked him to watch their daughter on Monday, her custody day, since she had to work a holiday. I was furious because he had assured me he wouldn't keep enabling her, yet he prioritized her request over our plans. He argued that since he had nothing else to do, he didn't see a problem with it. I told him this was a recurring pattern where he was doing more for his ex than for his daughter, and that as his partner, I should be included in decisions about our shared time. Then, he made an even bigger statement: if his ex ever needed money for rent or food, he would give it to her because he wanted his daughter to be okay and hoped she'd become a better mom. He expected me to give her grace. I told him that wasn't his responsibility and that, since we were combining our finances, I make significantly more than him and had even offered him a role in my tech company because he is now unemployed. I wasn't okay with financially supporting his ex. Frustrated, I packed my belongings from his house, not to break up, but to make my point. I feel hurt and humiliated, but he took it as a breakup, refused to talk, and even threatened to call the poly if I didn't leave. That same day, he reactivated his Bumble account. A friend of mine showed me, I still love him and want to work things out, but he says I'm being toxic and refuses to listen. Aita for being upset about his dynamic with his ex and how it affects our relationship. Edit 1. I need to clarify some stuff because I see some people have the same misunderstanding. First, I'm here for look at no bias perspective over the situation and I appreciate all the inputs towards my post. I didn't tough was going to have this quantity of answers. Second, the special needs of his daughter are minor. She is under the spectrum of autism, don't know which. So far I just made the comment, do I know she requires extra care? Third, I knew from the beginning that she needs extra attention and care and I decided to be with him towards all the commitments I know are necessary. I fortunately have the bandwidth and resources to help them as I do currently. I pay for her clothes, toys, care and even plans for have her seen to extra medical expertise to cover her care. Fourth, I'm a mother too. Of 2 girls, I don't push him towards take care of my girls or none of the things and all he do for my kids are willing as I do for her. Fifth, we are a couple. The communication in this was one of the issues I'm worried about, is not only his time being affected by his decisions. I understand emergencies again, I have kids too. I have taken care of his daughter when she need to stay home because she is sick and he needs to do stuff outside. I don't mind to sew regardless is his day or not, take her to the doctor, paid for her meds etc. But his was not an emergency and the fact that the ex is not accountable over her responsibility is an issue. She know her schedule and she needs to plan accordingly. No wait days before saying she needs cover every time she works, and summer vacations was the same. This is my time I want to spend with my partner and I did separate my time of my kids and make arrangements for it. Is unfair not being participate over this decisions. Certainly I didn't act right into my reaction but definitely doesn't help put salt on the wound on the comment towards the economic help. I do everything for my girls, I just can't justify a mother doesn't do the same without the constantly need on rely on the ex. I do think as some of you saying this is a power move. And he is clearly inclined towards the ex. There is a lot beyond can be read here and I'm just pointing the actions more relevant. I'm not a saint but as well I'm not unreasonable person. I mentioned the custody arrangement to get over 100% of the custody if the ex don't want the girl, and only have visitations. He doesn't agree with it. He wants to help her regardless and keep the situation as is. And she don't give the custody because she need to pay child support if she does. Stories number 31. Should I leave my husband because he won't get a job and save us from financial ruin? I've been married to my husband for nearly 14 years. We have 3 kids. We have always struggled financially but this last year has been unbelievably difficult. My husband struggles with his mental health and it makes it very hard for him to keep a job. I love him but I'm nearly at my breaking point and I don't know if I should stay with him. He lost his most recent job, that lasted 2 months, over a month ago, and despite me telling him that we won't be able to pay our mortgage if he didn't get another job ASAP, he has not found another job and honestly I don't think he has tried very hard. This has been an ongoing problem for the last couple years, but the last 12 months he has only worked for a maximum of 2 months at a job. So now we are in the position I have feared for months now, not able to pay our bills because of his choices. I'm so overwhelmed and terrified of what will happen next. How long before we lose our house? Utilities getting cut off. He spends his days doing the bare minimum for housework and smoking weed all day and night. He seems completely checked out of life, spending literally all his time either outside smoking cigarettes or in the downstairs bathroom smoking weed. The bathroom has crazy good ventilation and you can't smell it in the house at all. To his credit, he does still help with the kids a lot and he makes dinner and usually cleans up after dinner too. Since being off work he has also been doing the laundry and keeping the house tidy. He seems to think he deserves a lot of appreciation for this, but I'm just angry and resentful that he isn't doing the one thing we need, getting a job. Our marriage hasn't been in a good place for a long time and talks about money never go well. If I try to talk about how important financial stability is to me he gets annoyed and defensive. I feel so alone and in a constant state of panic over our current financial situation. I don't want to be a single mom. I don't want to give up our house and find a tiny apartment I'll barely be able to afford on my own. I'm so scared that leaving him will make everything worse, but staying with him feels stupid. Edited to add, he is suicidal and when I push too much about him needing a job he says he thinks it's time he takes himself out. I truly believe if I leave him he will threaten and possibly follow through on it. Second edit, yes I have a job. I make about $2,800 a month and we live in Canada and get Canada Child Benefit. CCB, for about $1,200 a month. Our expenses are roughly $7,000 a month, a lot of debt from years of this unfortunately. Yes, he is on meds and in therapy. He was going weekly until we couldn't afford it anymore. Third edit, a lot of people suggesting I have him committed. It doesn't work that way here. 4 years ago he had a breakdown and told me that he made a noose, hung it up and then, chickened out, he gave me the noose. I took him to the hospital and they didn't hold him because he showed he wasn't an immediate danger to himself by giving me the noose. 3 days later he went back and asked to stay because he didn't feel safe. They kept him, but when he asked to leave 2 days in, because a mental health hospital is a pretty horrible place to be sensory-wise, they let him go. Our mental health care is a joke. Stories number 32. All 3 roommates will be gone for summer break, May-September, and are refusing to pay for any utilities. Landlord-tenant housing. Currently renting a townhouse as a subletter with 3 college students close to age in me in a mid-sized city. They are all going to be gone over the summer, and they are all insisting that they shouldn't have to pay any utilities while they are gone because they won't be using them. While I get that I should be paying the bulk of utilities, I think it's unfair to have me pay all of it. It's not my fault they're gonna be gone over the summer. Not sure what to do. One of the girls has the electricity bill in her name, and when May rolls around she said if I refuse to transfer it to my name she will freeze the electricity and Wi-Fi. Assuming she follows through on that, likely, I am screwed into just paying it all. Isn't it kind of illegal to threaten that? Feels like I am just locked into paying it all on my own. To make matters worse, I took over my room from another girl in December and all of us just found out we pay electricity 1 month behind every month, so I paid for my previous tenant's electricity by accident. Stories number 33. 12-year-old arrested for making a joke about school shootings. My 12-year-old and his friend were joking in class and one-upping each other. I'll steal a car, I'll rob a bank, that kind of stupid stuff. They kept upping the ante until my son said, I'll shoot at the school. The school has a zero-tolerance policy on talking about, joking, or obviously threatening school violence. The signed witness statement from the school does say that the boys were joking, obviously inappropriately, and he has zero access to any firearms. He was expelled, reasonable, arrested, spent a night in juvenile detention, and is being charged with a Class 6 felony, in Arizona. I guess I'm just looking for feedback from someone with more experience with the legal system, because I have zero. I never got in trouble for anything. What are the odds that they are going to throw the book at him and set an example? I was told he could be facing being in juvie until his 18th birthday. That seems crazy for 2 dumb kids saying dumb things. I'm scared shitless that he will have a felony on his record and I will lose my son for the rest of his childhood over this. I also don't know if I should seek an attorney or just go with what the state provided. I feel so lost. Edited to add, my son is also neurodivergent and on a 504 plan. I don't know if that makes things any different, but blurting things out is a common thing for him, then add Tourette's on top of that. Stories number 34. Aita for asking my roommate's wife to wear bottoms around the house. My so and I have been putting up our BIL while he's trying to move back. He's employed and is paying token room and board while him and his wife attempt to sell their house. It's been 6 months so far. My BL spouse, Tina, is late 30s, a larger girl and some health issues. She's visited before and ruined decorative pillows due to having accidents on them as she likes to sit on our black decorative cushions. She's now been spending half of every month, and shouldn't be, in my home, as a guest. She doesn't wear underwear under her nightgown and will stay in her nightgown the majority of the day. I've had it. I watched her ruin another decorative pillow by sitting on it and leaving vaginal discharge and urine on it. I gave her a day to clean it and she pretended it didn't happen. I ended up throwing out the pillow in disgust and bleaching the seating mat underneath it. She then wore the same pee-stained nightgown the next day and I watched her as she lifted it up TSIT down bare but on my furniture. So we've spoken to her husband in hopes that he can tell her to wear underpants nicely. I'm also considering getting her a box of incontinence pads and leaving it in the bathroom she uses. Ada in this? It's disgusting, right? Editing for answers. Yep, real. I'm odd and don't react appropriately. I didn't know if I was overreacting or underreacting. These words help. Thank you all. It's my SO's brother, and up until he moved and we, his wife and I, hadn't spent more than a couple hours together, a day at most. I have a chronic illness myself so have tried to be tolerant and understanding and forgiving. Incontinence is a shameful topic. Size plays into severity of incontinence issues. I do have a pic of the last cushion she sat on. My home's theme is earthy colors, blacks, browns, reds, and whites. Yes, I have black cushions, decorative pillows. The roommate is employed locally. Their house is several hours drive away. He's supposed to be going home on weekends but due to mountain passes, winter weather and illness hasn't been home in over a month. It's not the first conflict the wife and I have had. Update, the next morning. BL spoke to his wife. She now has incontinence pads, and is wearing pants in the common areas and will be leaving today. Thanks everyone for all the responses. I thought I was being crazy for being so upset about this. She hasn't left yet, but soon I'll breathe a sigh of relief. Stories number 35. Well, I fucked it all up again. Potential tear jerker. I've lost her, boys. My girlfriend had been saying for months that I don't spend enough time with her, I just work and play video games basically, and because of previous issues I get defensive and basically told her that's how I am, like it or lump it. Greatest mistake of my life. Big chat. Lots of tears. I gave her a heart I made out of leather and stuff, and her smile lit up like crazy, and then it went just as fast. She said she isn't sure if she loves me anymore. I asked for one last chance to prove it. She says she doesn't know if she wants to give me that or not. And now I've stayed the night at hers. We haven't had sex or anything, just cuddling. But then she got too hot, so she pushed me away. Now I'm stood on her balcony chain smoking cigarettes, trying to decide if I go home or stay here. She's gonna leave. She's already gone, really. I'm just trying to figure out if I make my peace with that so I can see her just a couple more times, or not. Edit after comments. I'm not here attempting to defend what I have done. I realize what I did and I understand why she left. Stories number 36. Aita for telling my brother he's not welcome at my wedding after what he did. I, 29M, am getting married in 2 months to my fiancé, 27F, and we've been planning this day for over a year. My younger brother, 26M, and I have always had a strained relationship. He's the golden child in our family. Our parents have always excused his behavior, no matter how bad it was. Last year, at my engagement party, he got wasted and made an announcement in front of everyone, saying he didn't approve of my marriage because my fiancée is too controlling. Translation: she calls him out when he acts entitled. He then proceeded to propose to his girlfriend on the spot, stealing the moment entirely. My fiancée was on the verge of tears. I was furious and told him he was out of line, but my parents begged me to let it go because he was just drunk and excited. I reluctantly moved on for the sake of keeping peace. Fast forward to last week, he calls me, drunk again, and says, "Hey, I have an idea. What if I make a funny speech at your wedding? Like, just roast you a little?" I told him absolutely not and that I didn't trust him to behave. He got mad and said I was taking things too seriously, so I finally told him, he's not invited. I can't risk him ruining my wedding like he did our engagement party. My parents flipped out, saying I was being cruel and that family forgives. Now I have relatives messaging me, telling me I should just give him another chance. Aita for standing my ground. Stories number 37. Aita for calling my coworker out for his obsession with another coworker's lunch. We are all in our early to mid-30s, and this has been frustrating me for a while. All names are fake. My coworker Dan's wife Ann, who is a friend of mine, packs him lunch every day. Ann is a great cook, and Dan brings these bento boxes that look immaculate. They look straight out of one of those food anime. My other coworker, John, has always complimented how amazing Dan's lunch looks compared to whatever he's got, but then it turned into him also casually taking something from Dan's bento box. I think he used to ask for permission before, but now he just sits around while we're eating and goes, "Oh, that looks good," and just grabs it. I didn't think much of it because Dan didn't say anything, but I did notice John kept grabbing the biggest fritter sausage a few times and thought that was kind of rude. But not my business, so I kept my mouth shut. I randomly brought this up while talking to Ann, and she was clearly annoyed by this. I think she communicated that with Dan because he started becoming more protective of his lunch. He would loudly say how starved he was before opening his bento, jokingly looking over his shoulders and stuff. This, however, did not stop John, and honestly, it's been painful. Watching Dan get more and more frustrated, I started making comments like, "That's almost half of his lunch, John," and John would mumble something like, "But they're all stuck together," and proceed to take 3 dumplings. Dan tells the table that he doesn't have enough to share, and 5 minutes later, John forgets and just casually takes his food. Dan tells him specifically that he needs to eat his own lunch, and John will say that he just wanted a nibble, it's not, and act like Dan is making a big deal out of nothing. I knew Dan was stressed about this, but I didn't know how bad it was until Ann told me about Dan telling her to stop packing him lunch, combined with Dan not eating lunch with us in the common area. I spoke to Dan about it, and he was sick of John's shit apparently. Now that he is not bringing lunch, skipping lunch altogether, John asks him about his plans for lunch every single day and gets visibly disappointed when he learns there is no bento. This went on for about a week. Last week at lunch, John said something about how he really misses having Dan around at lunch, and something in me kind of snapped. I don't remember exactly what I said, but it was something like, "John, you know why he stopped coming to lunch, it's because you're always taking his food." There were two other people in the room with us and they kind of chuckled. Well, John got extremely red and started raising his voice at me, so I was like, "Guess we're not having lunch together either," and left. Now things are a bit tense in the office. And thanked me for speaking up, but I can tell this is affecting Dan from what Ann told me, and I'm starting to regret saying something causing tension at work, thinking that maybe I shouldn't have gotten involved. Additional info, Dan and John are both Koreans and John is older than us. I know there is this whole thing around age and respect within the culture and I wonder if that has something to do with their dynamic, which is why I feel like I may have overstepped. I met Ann long before starting my current job. Dan and I are friendly, but we don't interact much outside of work. Stories number 38. Aita, I told my husband to leave me alone and now I'm on silent treatment. I, 50 plus F, told my husband, 50 plus M, to leave me alone twice. It's been a week since the second time, and he hasn't spoken to me except to ask when he's going to get reimbursed for expenses incurred for flights to my mother's funeral. Here's the background, I had to fly to, hopefully, see my mom one final time before she died. I didn't have enough cash, so I borrowed the money from my husband. The first ticket I booked was to leave in a couple of days, but a family member contacted me after I made the reservation to tell me to leave ASAP. The airline couldn't change the first ticket, but they could refund it, 10 business days, and I could purchase a second one for the same price to leave immediately. At the time I asked, he was perfectly fine with this. I could pay him back when I could pull the extra funds together, and the first ticket would eventually be refunded. Unfortunately, I missed seeing my mom before she passed. The flight was to get to where she lived to make arrangements for her funeral and everything that comes with that. On the day of her funeral, I accidentally used the wrong card to pay a small amount at checkout when making a purchase. Tap with my phone and triggered the wrong account for payment. He gets notifications on his phone when the account is used. Within a minute, he messaged me to let me know what I'd done and that we'd need to find a way for me to stop doing this. I already knew I'd used the wrong card and had transferred the money from my personal account to cover the expense. It just wasn't the day for this kind of whiplash reaction to me making a mistake I'd already corrected. I sent him a text saying, "Leave me alone." He followed up wanting to know what he'd done that was so wrong. I let him know that emotions were high and I just needed to not be immediately corrected. Silence followed. That was the first, "leave me alone." My flight home was an overnight west to east travel. I was pretty jet-lagged on top of the grief and exhaustion when I arrived home. I was happy to tell him that my mom left some money specifically for a family trip. She loved travel, and it was her last gift to all of us. There is other money from her house sale, etc., which my husband asked about. I'm asked if I can cook dinner or drive to the store. I'm really not up for either. I'm asked if I can stir a component of the planned meal for a few minutes and then turn it off. I can do this, maybe. I'm just not doing great, but an adult child is present and can help. Adult child and I start emptying my suitcases. Adult child stirs dinner component a couple of times. We're going through grandma's things I brought back with me. It's emotional. I forget to ask the adult child to turn off the heat, and the dinner component burns. Husband shouts at me. I start crying because I'm just sad, and my mom is gone, and I burned dinner. I say I'm sorry. I'm tired. I have a lot going on. He yells at me pretty much saying it's always something with me. For the second time, I say, "Leave me alone." Adult child witnesses this and comforts me. Second adult child goes into the kitchen and makes a new batch of the dinner component. Husband has now not spoken to me for a week except to find out when he's getting a refund for the ticket I had to cancel and the second ticket I'm paying him back for, along with some other money I borrowed. Aita for telling him to leave me alone. I probably could have said something different. I just wasn't thinking with the grief and exhaustion. Have I asked for this week of silence by doing that? I just miss my mom and this hurts so much. Explaining that dinner component which does read weird. I don't want to name what I burned. My kids might read Reddit and would know immediately who this was if I named what was burned. Also, I had a choice between going to the store or cooking. I was too jet-lagged to drive so chose making dinner component. Stories number 39. Aita for embarrassing my parents in public over an allergy. I, 19F, have been allergic to dairy since I was a baby. My doctor and parents had a whole schedule for the first half of my life to get me acclimated to dairy. It went from me throwing up every night as a baby to the point where I could eat a pretty unrestricted diet and have no real symptoms other than stomach pain when I was in middle school. This sounds kind of stupid lol, but it took me until a couple of months ago to realize that the stomach pain is actually a symptom and not a thing I just need to deal with. I was on a school trip and asked if I could have the dairy-free meals, because I knew my stomach would feel icky from motion sickness and traveling, and I actually ended up feeling great, so ever since coming back to university I've basically gone dairy-free and my digestion has been great. However, because I now have lost all my tolerance for dairy, even very little makes me nearly as sick as when I was a really young child. I've told my parents this and they basically said, do whatever you want at school, but we didn't spend nearly 2 decades getting you used to dairy just to cut it out now. That's a lot of time wasted. I had to go home recently for a family event that my parents hosted and we had a big family meal with a lot of extended relatives where nearly everything had dairy. I tried scraping sauce and cheese off of stuff but I ingested some anyway clearly because I felt gross and spent a lot of time in the bathroom. At one point my mother got annoyed at me for leaving the table so much, I was leaving a lot, and said kind of angrily, "Why are you being so rude at this event?" This annoyed me because I didn't feel I was being rude, I was sick, so I said to her, "Why don't you take my allergy seriously? You're the reason I've been eating stuff that makes me sick for all my life." The issue is that I think that was kind of harsh of me. My parents do believe I have an allergy, they just also believe they cured it with the diet plan my doctor had me on. And they've told me that they only pursued it because my doctor said it could increase my quality of life to not have an allergy which, to be fair, when I was on this plan I was able to digest more without getting sick, my stomach just hurt a lot. I feel like I maybe been unnecessarily rude in how I reacted to my mother, and I'm also worried I drew attention to myself that wasn't needed. A lot of my relatives were asking if I was okay after dinner, which was kind of them but really not the focus of the event. Edit, I appreciate everybody telling me I'm lactose intolerant. I am not. I have been to several doctors throughout my life and gotten actual allergy tests. I am allergic to the dairy protein. If the symptoms I've shared sound like lactose intolerance, that's very interesting and good to know, but the one thing I am certain about is the diagnoses I have received. Stories number 40. My life is genuinely ruined, I hate myself, and slowly realizing this is the reality until I die. Venting, advice welcome. Hey everyone, going through a real rough time in my life lately. Before 2020 I was pretty happy and excited for the future. I had a lot of friends at college, about to get my degree, and was genuinely excited about adult life. I was very active with golf, snowboarding, running, cycling, pickup basketball, and life in general. I had an accident where an electric scooter hit my leg with a ton of force and tore my quad really bad. I went to the doctor and they never realized that surgery was the best option, so it healed incorrectly and left a big bump on my leg that is very noticeable when even slightly flexed. It also tore hamstring a bit. A few months later, trying to live my usual active life, I hurt it even more and since then I've been living in constant pain and discomfort. To make matters worse I ended up carrying a heavy golf bag all day with not a lot of padding and it hurt a nerve in my shoulder. So basically now my deltoid is paralyzed, and my scapula protrudes from my back. It never got better and I had to quit golf because of it, even when that was one of the last activities I was able to do without a lot of pain and worry. Now I'm 27, I have a decent paying job, but really nothing else to look forward to. The injuries to my leg have gotten worse and I lost the confidence to approach girls because of it. It's very noticeable and honestly freaks people out. I hit up an ex from way back when for some dumb reason and ended up getting blocked, and I feel like my dating life is pretty much over for me. I drink a lot because there is nothing else to really do, lost a ton of friends that we shared the same activities, and started gambling. I'm really just here to vent because I miss my old life. I miss being able to go on ski trips with friends, I miss being able to play golf for hours and grind my game, I miss being able to play league soccer, I miss bike riding, and Thanksgiving flag football games. I'm just in such a rut now and nothing feels real. Maybe I wasn't the best person in my past but it just feels so unfair to be punished like this just as I graduated college. I just don't know what to do. I was suicidal in the past but I know I'd never do that until my parents pass. I guess I'm just gonna have to accept that this is the life I have to live forever. I haven't been with a girl in 4.5 years now, not even a date. My ex-prop thinks I'm a pathetic loser and can't get over her, but in reality I just have a ton of health issues that came up. And was dumb enough to text her after seeing her at a local bar a couple months ago. It sucks because it was my first GF, and I learned a lot from the relationship, but think now with all the issues I have I won't be able to use that experience with anyone else. This has literally ruined my life and I wouldn't wish this pain and depression to my worst enemy. Sorry for the vent, I had a therapy session today and even he said, if you can't see yourself getting better, then what are we doing here? And he's right, I'm a lost cause, I still treat everyone with respect, but I hate myself and what my life has come to. I cry myself to sleep every night just sad thinking about my past self and how my dreams will never be fulfilled. Stories number 41. Asked for consent to kiss, she said no. Then texted me she wished I just kissed her. Had a vibe check meet earlier in the day with an old. It went well. She asked me what I was doing that night. I said we should hang out, she said she wanted to. We went to a speakeasy cool spot near me and all was going really great. She's beautiful, open-minded, there is a bit of a 14-year age gap, and the conversation flowed. I walked her to her car and asked if I could kiss her. She said no. I almost deleted her number after that and was ready to move on but decided to text, I enjoyed the night. She said she was conflicted and wished I had just kissed her. First time ever I can remember actually asking for a kiss and now I'm told I shouldn't have anyway, not a rant or anything but a big what is right and wrong here. We have been intimate since. Stories number 42. Aita for going on a cruise right before the birth of my niece. TLDR, my mom and I booked a Disney cruise with other extended family months ago, but it's set to happen 2 weeks before my brother's baby is due. My brother and his wife have been under a lot of stress, job loss, one child with a severe disability, and a high-risk pregnancy. They were counting on my mom to watch their daughter during the birth, and just found out that we will only get back 2 weeks before the due date. My SIL had a total meltdown, crying, yelling, and calling my mom irresponsible and selfish for going so close to the due date, especially since they're relying on her for child care. My mom thinks 2 weeks is plenty of time and was shocked at their reaction. However, they both still think my mom is in the wrong and should cancel the trip. If she doesn't, it will cause irreparable damage to their relationship. I understand their stress, but I feel like canceling a trip we booked a long time ago and have been looking forward to just in case of an early delivery is unfair. Am I, and is my mom, the asshole for still going? Edit, the cruise was booked in August, pregnancy announced in September. The cruise is in April. Induction is scheduled in May. She would never have scheduled it like this intentionally, but nobody put together how close the timing was until recently. Also, there are no other living grandparents, that's why they're not helping out. I do not know what specifically was agreed to in terms of child care, but clearly calendars were not used. Stories number 43. Custody battle over baby who hasn't been born yet. Hello, I, 28F, am pregnant with my first child. The father, 34M, and I are no longer together. I live in Vermont. He has threatened to take full custody of our baby once it is born. He claims I am an unfit mother, even though I haven't even gotten to be a mother yet. I have no addictions, I have a home, I have a full-time job working with traumatized youth, and I have a car that I lease. I have never been charged with a crime and I have no history of abuse. His only argument is that I'm toxic to him. He hasn't had a job in over a year, is considered homeless, he lives with his mother, and doesn't own his own vehicle, his mom does. He is absolutely convinced he will win this custody battle. He has been very mean to me in the past and he has me terrified he is going to take our baby. He hasn't been here for any of my pregnancy or helped me with anything at all. What are the chances of a judge actually giving him full custody? What do I need to prove I am nowhere close to an unfit mother? I have offered to be reasonable and co-parent, but he won't budge. Stories number 44. I think married women in the US should be beginning the legal process of returning to the name on their birth certificates right now. The title is the post. Peeps, don't wait, fix your legal name right away. I think that in my state you have to go through the court system to legally change your name, and since that can take time, it's wise to start the process ASAP. If we are going to need our IDs to match our birth name, let's do that. ETA, this isn't charma farming, I really think we need to get the word out. I've been seeing a lot of people freaking out about the possible problems of voting as a married woman, and I keep thinking, the answer is right in front of you. Stories number 45. Aita for believing my 5 years over my MIL. Without going into too many specifics, my MIL is difficult to deal with. The biggest problem I have with her is that she does what she wants with my daughter regardless of what me or my husband say. I'll say no candy, she'll give her 2 pieces. She sneaks her Coke and tea even after we've told her not to. Most things are harmless enough but my husband and I watch our daughter like a hawk when we're at their house now. We were there for a long weekend and honestly everything was going great. MIL was in a great mood and FIL was feeling good, he's in his 90s and his health hasn't been great the past year. I let my guard down and let my daughter spend some time with my MIL. A couple of days later when my daughter and I are eating lunch, she tells me MIL clipped her hair. I asked her where and she pulls at her bangs and sure enough they look like they've been cut. She also said the same thing to the neighbor when the neighbor said how blonde my daughter's hair had gotten. Grandma clipped it, that would have been my daughter's first haircut. I had no doubt MIL cut it. She mentioned a couple of times my daughter needed a haircut. Me and my husband said no, we did not want to cut her hair. I texted my MIL that I knew she had cut her hair and basically we'd be going no contact for a while along with how I felt about the situation. She of course denied everything and called my husband screaming crying, "How can you believe anything a 2Y says?" So Reddit, Aita Reddit to say it wasn't a week later that I noticed her hair was cut. It was literally a day and a half later. I did notice it was different, I just thought it was the way she had slept on it. Her hair is soft and fine so tangles aren't really a problem and she hates it when I try to fix it, so I pretty much leave it alone until it's time to wash it, which I don't do every night. Also my MIL has a history of disregarding your wishes as a parent. She is low to no contact with her step-grandchildren for this exact reason. Stories number 46, Aita. Bought coffee for coworkers. One is pregnant. Will be using fake names. So Friday I stopped before work to do a coffee run for my coworkers in the morning. Texted everyone what they wanted and ordered. I made sure everyone replied before leaving, so I get to work, hand out the orders and everything seems fine. Until I get pulled aside by Emily to talk about something. I'm thinking it has to do with work. She asks me why I thought it was appropriate to buy coffee for Lucy. Lucy is 7 months pregnant. Her and I get along and are friends outside of work. We all do dinners and hang out as a group etc. I even babysit for her 5 years old. We have known each other before working together. I tell her Lucy's doctor was okay with it and frankly it shouldn't be her concern, and if it is, to talk to Lucy. This is the first small iced coffee she has had her entire pregnancy, as I have done these runs before. She usually just orders a tea or nothing at all. She takes very good care of her eating, exercises etc. Baby is healthy, and that if the baby wasn't Lucy would not chance that. I tell her I cannot police someone, and if she wanted a coffee she would have just bought one herself anyway. Emily then tells me I am a horrible person who is putting Lucy's child at risk. I tell her I appreciate her concern but it isn't my problem. I again cannot tell Lucy what she can and can't eat or drink. Lucy told me she was fine, but now Emily barely responds to me or Lucy. Which is frustrating when I am going over the schedule for the day and Emily doesn't respond when I ask her a question or just says yup, got it. I don't feel as bad, but now I'm feeling a little guilty. I tried to handle it professionally and maybe my wording was wrong. I am the manager, but I feel like this is a personal issue, not a work-related one. So AIT. Stories number 47. My 31M wife, 32F, is upset with my career. How can we get on the same page? My 31M wife, 32F, has been getting increasingly upset with me over the past month about my career. I work an office job, HR, full-time making $90,000 and a part-time job making $10,000 to $12,000. She works as a company director making $125,000 and finishes law school this spring. Lately she has been telling me to come up with a 5-year plan to make $200,000 to $500,000 so she can quit working. Her stating she wants to quit working and being serious is recent. Her current plans are to work in big law for a few years and then move on to something slower paced after we've paid off her law school loans. We're currently house hunting, and while going through our realtor's website she was getting frustrated at the homes that we can afford, all great homes in the high 300s and low 400s. She told me that she wants to quit, live in her big house with her nice car, and stay at home with the kids, and that I need to get a job to support that. For as long as we have been together, I have said that I'm not interested in a high-stress, high-supervisory position in my day job. I'm very fortunate to have a job that pays well without headaches or requiring a college degree. My wife has been in her career field for 10 years in management positions and has been earning degrees in higher education for most of that time. I'm not lacking any drive in my life. I moved from a $70,000 job in 2023 to where I am now for a substantial, to me, raise. When she left the house today she sarcastically apologized to me for not seeing my lack of drive before we got married and for not seeing me being happy with never getting more. That's the first time she said something to me that was really hurtful. Am I totally incorrect in my position here? Or is there a way I can better explain myself? Stories number 48. AITA for not going to save her. I made plans with a girl I've been talking to for about 5 months now, but I woke up feeling sick today so I cancelled on her. I slept the entire day and when I woke up she was at a park she walked 30 minutes to and invited me. I told her I probably wouldn't leave the house today, but I'll be out and about the next 2 days if she wanted to go to the park. She then said, I'm waiting for these guys to leave so I can leave cause there's a lot of men here RN that got here after me, which I immediately felt like she only told me that so I would come and make sure she got home safe, but I still didn't go. Then she tells me that it started raining and her phone is on 2% battery and she has to walk 30 minutes and has to use her maps because she doesn't know her way home. At this point yes I feel bad, but I still feel like she's telling me all this so I'll give in and just come get her. Now she's aggravated that I didn't come. Some details I might have left out. The park was a 45 minutes drive from me, it's 7 p.m. dark and rainy, I broke my wrist 4 days ago in a motorcycle accident, all reasons why I didn't really want to get out. Aita for not going to pick her up and make sure she got home safe. Stories number 49. Aita for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after she tried to charge me for being a bridesmaid. I have always been close to my sister, Lily, but our relationship has been rocky lately. A couple of months ago, Lily asked me to be a bridesmaid at her wedding, which I was excited about. I've always supported her, and I thought this would be a special moment. But then, she gave me the list of requirements for the bridesmaids. The dress was over $300, and she said we needed to pay for our own hair, makeup, and even accessories. I wasn't thrilled about the price but thought it was part of the deal, and I'd find a way to make it work. However, a few weeks ago, she called me and said I also needed to pay for a bridesmaid fee, $150 to cover her costs for the bachelorette party, decorations, and just to help out. I was shocked. I asked if that was really a thing, and she said, well, everyone else is chipping in. I told her I couldn't afford it and that it felt wrong to charge me to be a part of her wedding. She got angry, saying I was being selfish and ruining her special day. After thinking about it, I realized I just couldn't do it. I told her I wouldn't be attending the wedding if that was the case. She went silent, and now the rest of the family is mad at me, calling me petty and saying I should just suck it up. Aita for refusing to attend and be charged to be a bridesmaid. Stories number 50. Why do so many MAGA women get so offended at the whole women in STEM thing? I had a MAGA girl from high school block me on Facebook for being a female mechanical engineering PhD student and posting "representation matters," along with a comic of a girl aspiring to be a scientist after she met a female scientist. Another MAGA girl from high school posted a snarky comment on a post about adding NASA t-shirts to the girls section of a clothing store. Another MAGA lady in her 60s commented on the post of a beauty pageant winner who happens to be a nuclear engineer that a woman studying nuclear science is a sign that hell is freezing over. These are reactions from Trump supporting women I've seen on Facebook on posts about uplifting women in STEM fields. They always have to be snarky. Stories number 51. Aita for fostering after breaking up with my fiancé over not wanting kids. Throwaway account for obvious reasons. I, 29M, and my ex-fiancé, 30F, broke up in the summer of 2021, about a year before we were supposed to get married. It wasn't an easy decision, but it became clear that we had fundamentally different views on our future, especially when it came to kids. I never wanted children. I've never been good with babies, I didn't have a father growing up, so I never had a good role model, and I just never felt the need to have my own biological children. The idea of raising kids from birth, dealing with sleepless nights, and making that lifelong commitment never appealed to me. She, on the other hand, wanted kids more than anything. She loved babies, was amazing with little kids, and always talked about what kind of mom she wanted to be. The more we talked about it, the more obvious it became that neither of us was going to change our minds. I didn't want to hold her back from something that was so important to her, so I ended the engagement. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but I knew staying together would only lead to resentment. After our breakup, I started learning more about the foster care system. I hadn't thought much about it before, but the more I learned, the more I realized how many kids needed safe homes. I started by donating to organizations, supporting foster parents I knew, and sharing information online. But I still felt like I wasn't doing enough. At first, I thought fostering was out of the question for me. I was single, and I assumed they wouldn't even consider me. But then, a social worker friend of mine told me how much need there was for foster parents. That conversation changed everything for me. I had a decent job, a house with a spare bedroom, and plenty of savings, and I realized I was in a good position to help. So, I spent some time getting my everything ready and started the process. Before long, I began fostering some kids, mainly for a few weeks at a time. So far, I've fostered around 15 kids. My most recent placement is a 7-year-old boy who's been with me for 2 months now. He's been through a lot, bouncing between different homes, struggling in school, and dealing with a lot of fear and stuff. But over the past couple of months, I've seen him open up. It's not always easy, but I care about this kid deeply, and I'll always fight for him, whether he stays with me long term or not. Recently, my ex found out that I had become a foster parent through mutual friends, and she absolutely lost it. She sent me a long message accusing me of lying to her, saying I had wasted years of her life and broken up with her for no reason. She said that if I could foster, I should have had kids with her because it's the same thing. She told me I was a hypocrite and that I must have secretly wanted kids all along. At first I just ignored her because I thought she sounded crazy, and I knew it wasn't the same thing, but then I started to get tired of the constant messages and messaged back, basically just telling her that it wasn't same and I hadn't lied to her. She refused to listen and accused me of being selfish for not compromising when we were together. She even suggested that I should have just gone along with it if I was willing to take care of kids now. I do feel bad that she's hurt, but I don't think I did anything wrong. I was honest with her about not wanting children. My views on that haven't changed. I just found a way to help kids who are already here and in need. Other people are on the fence about it. Some agree with me saying it's not the same thing, but some others can see where she's coming from too and think it was sly for me to do that after we broke up. So, Aita. Stories number 52. Aita, for refusing to give my coworker a ride after he called me his personal chauffeur. I have a coworker who lives near me and I've given him a ride to work a few times before. Well, his car is now in the shop, needed to get work done, and he asked for a ride again. Not a big deal. He even asked if I could stop by the store for him to pick up groceries, and again I didn't mind, I had nothing else going on. Well, earlier I heard him joking about how I'm his personal chauffeur, and he didn't need to rush his car getting fixed. He asked me for a ride again today after work and I told him no, bringing up what I heard him say. He said I'm overreacting and that he was just kidding. I didn't give him a ride home and he had to pay for an Uber. Am I an asshole for not giving him a ride home? Or was his joking as rude as I took it? Stories number 53. Elementary kids making moaning-like sounds. Hey teachers, so I'm curious if this is a Gen Alpha thing, but my son at 2nd grade started making moaning noises. It's the most annoying and disgusting thing. Does it without even knowing, it's ingrained in his brain. Wife has been to some school functions and she says she's heard kids make these noises. Why the hell is this happening? Young kids with unfettered access to internet or those with older siblings and they see things they shouldn't. Thanks for your input. Edit. Wow, I'm definitely not alone in this struggle. Thank you everyone for your info on this. I can't believe this is coming from online gaming, as some of you have shared.